This meeting. Jen, will you please read the district mission statement for us?
Yes. Ipswich Public Schools aspires to empower all students to be global citizens who are effective communicators, analytical problem solvers, and savvy consumers of information. We propose to do this through an emphasis on communication, critical thinking, creativity, self-management, perseverance, and collaboration. Students will be active partners in authentic learning, offering voice and choice in demonstrating competency.
Thank you. All right, next up is announcements. The next school committee meeting will be held on Thursday, April 4th at 7 p.m. in the Middle School High School Ensemble Room. Negotiations with the Ipswich Educators Association will be held on Wednesday, March 27th at 4:30 p.m. And the FEFI Policy Working Group meeting will be held on March 27th at 7 p.m. Do we have any other announcements? All right, seeing none. Special acknowledgements, Dr. Blake.
So I'll start off with acknowledging, and we're going to hear more briefly from all of our winter athletes. We never get a crowd like this at our meeting. So welcome, everyone. We'll hear about your accomplishments shortly. And I also want to give a shout out, probably many of the same students were involved, but Marissa Scarano and Michael Coelho for their work with the String Fest last night. It was just another amazing performance, as well as the rest of the music educators who were behind the scenes, keeping it all organized with the elementary students throughout the evening, elementary and middle school students, I should say. So that was a great night. So kudos to them as well.
Great, thank you. Any other special acknowledgements? Okay, I do not have any remarks from the chair tonight, so we will move on to public comment. Do we have any public comments this evening? All right, hearing none, we are moving right along. We can actually skip the high school student representative report. Our student representative, Jimmy Bornstein, cannot make it tonight, so we'll skip that. So we're ready for Winter Sports Awards, and I will hand it over to Mr. Gallagher. If you could just speak into the microphone, you can pull it over if you need to, so that people on ICAM can hear you.
So thank you for having us, and welcome everyone. This is an opportunity that we get 3 times a year to honor our student athletes and their individual accomplishments and team accomplishments and coaches and so forth. This is always a fun night and something that we always look forward to and appreciate the school committee having us here. I have a couple of general things that I want to share about the season, and then we have individual sport awards. With those awards, there are certificates, and I'll ask that if you guys can come up and join me when we get to that point. When I call your name, we'll bring you forward and present you with your certificates. But a couple of things that I wanted to highlight first, we had a Cape Ann League Baker Division Championship girls track team. We also had Cape Ann League Baker Division Sportsmanship Award winners in girls swim and dive, girls basketball, and our boys co-op ice hockey team with Rockport. So congratulations to those teams on those accomplishments. And we have our individual awards at this point. So, as I said, if you're here, when I call your name, if you come forward, we have certificates for all of you. All right, so to begin, we have Max Chesley, who is a boys basketball first team All-Star. We have Nick DeLeon, boys basketball second team All-Star. Strike 2. Girls basketball first team All-Star, Lucy Donahue. Congratulations, Lucy. You're welcome. We have girls basketball second team All-Star, Ella Stein. Congratulations, Ella. Next, we have Karine Anderson, silver medal in the 200-yard freestyle relay and bronze medal in the 200 IM. Next, Kate Miller, swimming and diving, silver medal, 200-yard freestyle relay. Next, Aubrey Callis, swimming and diving, silver medal, 200-yard freestyle relay. Maddie Marini, girls swimming and diving, silver medal, 200-yard freestyle relay. Charlie Quimby, boys swimming and diving, bronze medal, 200-yard medley relay. Micah Hanchett, boys swimming and diving, bronze medal, 200-yard medley relay. Joey Powers, swimming and diving, bronze medal, 200-yard medley relay. Luke Linehan, silver medal, 500-yard freestyle relay, and then bronze medal, 200-yard medley relay and boys swim and dive. Mary Love, indoor track and field, gold medal, 2-mile, bronze medal, 4x8 relay team. We have Lucy Winthrop, indoor track and field, silver medal, 4x4 relay team, bronze medal, 1,000-meter run. Fresh off the lacrosse field, frozen solid. Lily Harper, indoor track and field, silver medal, 4x4 relay team. Amelia Morad, indoor track and field, silver medal, 4x4 relay team. Indoor track and field, silver medal, 4x4 relay team, Soren Shearer. Stella Witten, indoor track and field, bronze medal, 4x8 relay team. Brooke Soinen, indoor track and field, bronze medal, 4x8 relay team. Anna Kircher, indoor track and field, bronze medal, 4x8 relay. Next is Brady Arnold, ice hockey, girls ice hockey, Northeastern Conference All-Star. Allie Greenleaf, girls ice hockey, Northeastern Conference All-Star. And last but not least, we have Will Harrington, Alpine Ski. This is the North Shore Ski League. He was a silver medalist this winter. Congratulations, everybody. Yeah, if we could bring everybody out there, they like to take a group photo with everybody in their certificates.
Richard, is that right?
It's great, Tom. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks.
James is doing also. James. Yeah, I'll get this off.
Thank you for having us.
Yes,
Thank you.
That was great. That's great.
One of the nice things we get to do a few times a year.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're going to have to introduce yourselves. Oh, no, you should sit back there.
Oh, okay.
I'm well. How are you?
Very good.
Good.
Nice to be
Good.
here. Nice to be here with you.
Nice to be here as well. Cold out there.
Yes.
Snow tomorrow, right?
Is it?
It's snow over Saturday, I guess.
Yeah, they're getting, yeah.
Yeah. Must be like, where was all this 2 months ago? But I bet you people will still go up.
Saw on the news this morning, like right from like Minnesota, right up through Maine, all north. Everything that far north is getting snow. Yeah.
March.
Well, get in the last couple of weekends if you're skier, it's supposed to be good, right?
Like, gone out or?
Yeah, this light's typically on. I don't. Maybe the other one's off. Behind that phone, is that behind that phone? Is there another set of light switches there?
Oh, you want the lights? Yeah, it's behind the phone over there.
Announce Scotland.
That ain't it.
That was fine. That's a different meeting. That's a fun one.
Yeah.
Food lights are- So I guess the lights are out.
No. Usually it's 12.
Oh, got it.
There you go.
There we go.
It's complicated. You got to choose these things.
Oh.
Sorry, ICAM, we'll be right back with you. The lights are flashing.
They talk, we smile.
Very good.
It's like at the theater, right? The lights flash. All right, 5 minutes till showtime.
Yes, right.
Right? Or whatever.
Intermission.
Yes.
All right, so we're back. Uncharacteristically ahead of schedule. So if we have to shuffle some things around because folks aren't here, we will. But it looks like next up is overview field trip request. And I see some robotics folks here. So I think we're good to move on to that. So I will call up Mr. Joel or students or whoever's presenting. We have this is an overnight field trip request to the New England Robotics Championship. We have a approval form in our folder.
And
Welcome.
please, when you're speaking, please step right up to the microphone.
And then just say your name and go for it.
Hello, my name is James Jewell.
Hi, I'm Toby Flowers.
Hi, I'm Lizzie Hone. Hi, I'm Rosemar.
So, as you may remember, a few weeks ago, we came and asked about an overnight field trip to Lewiston for our first competition. Luckily enough, that was last week, and we did very well. We accrued enough points at our first competition to be ranked 87 out of 198 teams in New England. For New England District Championship, the top 90 teams are invited. We are ranked 87. So as it is, we are currently in the running. And that is, of course, before our second competition next weekend. So we are looking to be ranked top half, top third in all of New England, making it almost certain that we are going to be going, or invited at least, to the New England District Championship in a few weeks.
So James has covered a lot of it, and I just like to quickly touch on the importance of going to district championship. So district championship is, like James was saying, a multi-day event in Springfield after we already proven that we can do well in competition. We went last year, which is first for the team, and we're going to repeat it this year. And it's really important in helping students understand just their interests in STEM. We've had a lot of previous students explore STEM further in college, and a lot of new students, especially freshmen, who have found it great to explore as well.
These are our driver and
Yes.
operator. These are the people actually driving the robot.
Yeah.
They are fresh.
Freshmen, I know.
Wow.
That's great. Yeah.
So the competitions have been really awesome so far, even though we've only had one. And it's been such a great learning experience. And I've been taught so much throughout all the competitions from last year and this year, including the district event that we went to last year. And it would be amazing to go again.
These competitions, they help build a lot of responsibility, learning and engineering, and also to add, we won an award last competition.
yeah.
This,
The innovation or
second was it?
It was the
Industrial Design Award.
that one. Basically, what that entails is judges walk around it to our pit and interview us about our robot. And this specific award is for a unique design that helps accomplish a goal. And what we won it for is, I'm trying to figure out how do I explain this without having to explain the entire game. But basically, we have a pivot arm that picks up game pieces in front of our robot. But because of this year's general game design, there are teams flying around going really, really quickly. So we want to be able to protect our like picky uppy parts. So we put a frame rail out in front to provide like bumper protection in front of our picky uppy parts. And it's worked fantastically. So, and the judges appreciated that and gave us the award. And we're hoping to repeat this success.
So essentially, we've been recognized by judges and probably other teams due to this award, and this further secures our spot in districts. It also gave us extra points for the ranking.
And you might notice on the paperwork, the finances, we were trying to work it. It's a work in progress. We have had a donation from a trust to pay for our entrance fee of about $6,000. And then the students, the parents are going to be picking up the cost of the hotel and the food. So we have 10 meals down there plus hotel. So parents are going to have to pay for that. It'd be about $400 per student. Any questions?
Are there students that won't be able to go because of that cost? that we're aware of?
We've heard from at least one family that they have financial hardships, and we have gone and Mr. Mitchell has gone and assessed. We have an account somewhere from something, somehow he took care of it. The bottom line, it's taken care of, to my knowledge. That's the only one I know of so far.
Okay.
And our turnaround is kind of tight. So we have our competition on Friday and Saturday. Sunday is Easter, Monday, Tuesday, and we're back at the competition on Wednesday. Hence why we're asking before we are positive about this, because the turnaround is literally 3 days, including Easter. And if you see a bunch of kids fixing a robot out here on Easter Sunday, that's because that's what we might have to do. We'll run power somewhere. We'll find an outlet somewhere on the outside the building.
Okay.
Okay, so the turnaround time between the next competition
And
and the championship. Okay.
is
So the
literally 3
championship's
days,
2 days. Okay.
including Easter.
Gotcha. I appreciate that you explained the workings of the robot in layman's terms, so I know. Picky uppy parts. I get it. That makes sense to me. Thank you. I know it's way more complicated, but okay. Could you explain how many chaperones for 28 students and cars? How many?
Well, we've decided, we suddenly, when we went and said, asked all the parents and the kids if they wanted to go, we don't have 28 kids. We now have, 8 plus 6 is 14? We have 14 kids as of this moment. We're waiting to hear back from 2 more. So we might have 16 students, and we have currently 5 mentors going.
Okay.
So, yeah, so it's 16 students and 5 mentors.
Okay, but those mentors are considered
They are,
chaperones,
yep,
or
they are
not?
chaperones. They're
Okay.
coried and fingerprinted. They're the same system we did the last year's, the exact same setup, same system we did last year.
Okay, it's just the paperwork said
Yep,
2 chaperones for.
yeah, it did say 2. That was
28,
accurate when I wrote that
16.
down.
I know.
Yep, and it's changed since then.
So,
Yep.
16 from 28. So where? like,
Spring
just not
sports has happened.
interested, Or
No, spring sports has started. 3/4 of the team is involved in spring sports.
okay.
We also have Micah that weekend, and there is a variety of things. The Fine Arts Department have been working diligently trying to shuffle, mix, move things, and we're so we have those type of conflicts, and we also have 8th graders that not necessarily want to go on an overnight field trip just yet with a bunch of high school kids. We have a variety of those type of things.
Okay. Thank you.
For example, I am missing a baseball game and Micah to go to this competition. So some other people can't miss some games. I'm missing the game because I am captain of the robotics team, not captain of the baseball team.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good problem to have in our district. We do a lot of things. And I mean, last year it was Model N and Micah.
Yep.
And
And then for when we went to Lewiston, we had 8 students that couldn't make it to Lewiston because of junior districts. And then 1/3 of the jazz band are also on our team. And quite a few of them did the jazz band, got off stage, and then changed and came up and visited us and joined us when they could. So we're trying to accommodate all. These kids do it all,
they do.
as you know.
Yep.
Because each one of you, as a parent, you're fully aware of these things.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, I wish we could coordinate it better, but I get it. There's literally no weekends without things going on. Other questions for this overnight field trip request? Could I get a motion?
Actually, sorry, one question. Is there anything we need to amend in the document now with the number of students and chaperones? We're good? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
We're
Then I
fine.
move we approve the overnight field trip request for the robotics team from April 3rd through April 6th.
Second.
All right, moved by Sasha, second by Diana. Further discussion? All in favor? All right,
Unanimous?
6-0. It's approved. Yeah, and I hope
Much. Have a good
you're
night.
welcome.
Good luck.
I hope you make it. Good luck.
Congratulations.
Keep us posted. So, do we have all the folks here for the DEI committee presentation? Okay, then we will move on.
Do we want a clicker or no?
I don't mind. There's so many people coming up that.
So this presentation is also in our folder. If you don't want to turn around. Oh, I took your chairs away. Sorry. It is in the folder if you'd like to follow along. 8.c.
Brian coming next for the other presentation? Am I going to need, because I'll need to use my computer for his. I have it booted
He said
up.
he doesn't need to do a presentation. Brian Hone?
Yes.
Bicycling,
Yeah.
or bicycling, but bicycling,
Yes.
or cycling and pedestrian. They do not need to make a presentation.
Okay, because I have their slide deck queued up.
Okay,
If they
they
need it,
said they're good because it's on our, but if they decide they want to. But we might need to skip around if they don't show up. We'll see where we are for timing.
Right, so good evening. Over the past few years, there's been a strong focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion in schools across the Commonwealth. That work's also been ongoing in our schools for several years now. The DEI work in Ipswich is also part of my goals, as you know, this year. And in addition to the work that we're going to be talking about tonight, I'm also involved with a group of superintendents who have been engaged in the work around the state. We meet monthly over the last 2 years discussing different topics around DEI. And that work continues. This year, we're focusing on problems of practice in each of our districts. So tonight, we're going to give you an overview of the work that's been happening in Ipswich. So here's a brief overview of our presentation this evening. We'll review our mission statement and what we do. Tracy will then give a brief history of the DEI work here in Ipswich, and then we'll turn it over to representatives from each of our schools to talk about their work. And then we're going to finish up the evening presentation with thoughts about the future. So several years ago, I think it was 3 years ago now, the DEI team, when we were first forming it, spent a lot of time developing our vision statement. And so I'll just read this into the record. As the Ipswich Public Schools Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, we believe that a community is stronger together. Our vision is to create a district of learners dedicated to amplifying marginalized voices. will prepare students to become compassionate and active global citizens. We will celebrate the diversity within and beyond our community while confronting issues of equity and inclusion in our practices and learning environments. So the district-wide team is made up of adult representatives from each school and high school students. We meet monthly to check in and support each other's work. We also discuss critical issues as they come up and try to help problem solve those issues with the group. We have a district goal in our strategy for district improvement that we review each year. And that goal is for building the best practices to support diversity, equity, and inclusion. And more specifically, we want to ensure that all students will be well prepared to face the challenges that are presented in an increasingly complex world that is more diverse than we see in Ipswich. Now, that piece in particular is tied to some critical feedback that we got from some of our graduates that had gone away to college and then came back. And they all were reporting to us that although they were very well prepared academically, they weren't necessarily prepared for the diverse populations that they were experiencing on college campuses around the country. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Wagner to talk about the history of our DEI work in Ipswich.
Thank you. It's exciting. Dr. Blake is clicking for me. So, a brief history of DEI work across the district. So, as Dr. Blake has talked about, we have the district-wide DEI team, but even before that, there was a lot of work happening in the district. The work really started with teachers. It started with teacher professional learning communities, in particular at the elementary schools, started at Winthrop and then went to Doyon, of teachers who were interested in reading and talking about and looking at our systems of equity. And from that, it really became not the work of just a few interested teachers, but the work we all had to do. So there was a year where we brought in professional development for teachers. We had a DEI speaker on the big PD day in the fall. We brought in summer work for teachers, really trying to spread the conversations from groups of people who were already interested to what we do to the fabric of the district as a whole. So that spurred the district DEI team that Dr. Blake explained, and you'll hear from the adult and a student member today, which is very exciting. You'll hear about the No Place for Hate initiative that was started last year. It was earned by the Paul F. Doyon Memorial School and also by Ipswich Middle School. And our two other schools, Winthrop School and Ipswich High School, are so close to getting it this year. They each have one initiative left to report, which is exciting. We also, and you'll hear about at the elementary level, we use Responsive Classroom. Responsive Classroom is a practice of morning meeting. You might hear your elementary students talk about. It's a way teachers talk and interact with students to prevent and proactively have strong relationships with kids to prevent discipline issues down the road. It's conflict resolution. You'll hear at the secondary level a lot about restorative justice circles. This is actually part of an initiative that's also through DESE, of not having reactive disciplinary measures, but in putting in protocols by which students talk to each other, students and teachers talk to each other to resolve conflict and build community. So hear those terms mentioned. And lastly, we'll end with how we're deepening the work and bringing it beyond these individual initiatives to really the way that we believe and practice and run Ipswich Public Schools. So we will start with Winthrop School, and I'll introduce Catherine Morris.
Hi there, my name is Kath. Hello, oh my goodness, so many familiar faces. Hi, Catherine Morris. I'm a special education teacher at the Winthrop School. This is my second year being a part of our No Place for Hate, and it's been such a pleasure seeing it grow over the last 2 years. Last year was really a transition year for us. We really had to get our footing to really figure out what is our role as teachers in this process and what is the student role within this process. So last year when we began, we had a group of 8 4th and 5th grade students join, I believe it was about 3 or 4 teachers. And we decided on one large activity we'd like to do together all about identity. So kindergarten students through 5th grade students all received a little star. And we created the bulletin that you see on the left-hand side, with students asked to really think about their identity and an element that they're really proud about, that they'd like to share with others, just to have that really large graphic as soon as they walk into the school, to remember that they are individuals and we want to value that, but also they're members of a much larger community as well. So that was our work last year. We got off to a little bit of a slow start as we found our footing, but this year we've really hit the ground running. We have a very energetic, super excited group of 4th and 5th graders again. Thank you so much for having your daughter participate. Like mother, like daughter. So that's been really awesome. We meet monthly. I think we have both administrators on our team as well as 3 teachers. And it's a really wonderful group. I think having that start last year and then pushing it forward this year has really helped us. We started the year by pretty much being transparent with the students and saying, you know, we need to accomplish 3 activities this year. And we showed them some activities that both No Place for Hate and the ADL recommend for elementary students. And we kind of gave them free rein and said, what are conversations that as students you feel like aren't happening right now? Or what are conversations that you feel like were happening more often that necessarily might not fit into our curriculum as it stands? So they identified activities that they'd wanted to do, again, on identity, on bullying, and also on stereotypes. So far this year, last month, we completed our first activity. That's the iceberg you see on the right-hand side. All students participated in creating their own identity iceberg. So we had the discussion that when you first meet someone, there's only a very small portion of their identity that you can actually physically see, similar to an iceberg. But in order to really get to know someone and to learn deeper parts, really takes time and questioning and effort. So again, kindergartners through 5th grade students participated in that activity. Our No Place for Hate students, as I said, are incredibly motivated. So they created scripts that let them go into each of those classrooms to introduce the activity, but also just to remind everyone of here's what No Place for Hate is, here's kind of what we stand by and what we're hoping to accomplish. Which they were so timely on that. I would go to find them to be like, oh, you have your activity. And their teachers are like, they already left 5 minutes ago. They have their scripts and like little presentations and everything. So they did an awesome job with that. And then they fully decided on their own, well, how about we make a school-wide iceberg? Everyone's had that lesson. Everyone knows that message. Everyone knows that symbol. So in one of our sessions, they created a school-wide one that's right by our library upstairs that all students are welcome to add pictures to, words to, anything they'd like to about their identity. So they really grabbed the bull by the horns on that one. We are preparing for, we actually met earlier today, our April activity will be on identity-based bullying. So taking those lessons that students have previously learned and discussing specifically what bullying is and what it means to bully someone because of certain elements of their identity. So making that link for them there. Later on in the year, we'll finish off with stereotypes, discussing what does it mean for it to be something for boys? What does it mean to be something for girls? Is that true? Is that not true? And kind of questioning those things and having students identify the parts of their identity and realizing that regardless of what those elements are, you can be and do anything. So really ending the year on a positive note there. But it's been such a pleasure to be a part of the group the last 2 years. As I said, we're hoping to get our accreditation this year. And so I'm so excited to finish off this year with this group of students, but I'm also excited to see how this group continues and grows throughout the next few years. So thank you.
Thank you. Wow.
Your rep this evening ill, so pinch hitting.
You look great.
Colorful Mr. Hope.
Hi. So I'm Peter Holtz, the principal of the Doyen School. Holly Bendizu is our art teacher, and she has been sick all week, so she wasn't able to be here. So I offered to talk a little bit about some of the things that we're doing. Last year, we had a team of Teresa Hohenstein and Sarah Trotsky that were 2 teachers that led the effort. And I think they started off with signing the No Place for Hate pledge. And they started a group and started with the pledge and then sort of built from that. There were some surveys that were conducted with the little guys as well as our older kids. And then they came up with a couple of different projects. And I wasn't here for these, so I can only sort of share the information that I got about them. One of the things last year, we had 2 grade levels that ate lunch together, and they paired them up and had a pen pal project. So 2nd and 4th, 3rd and 5th, K and 1. And it was to foster connections in the cafeteria. Students created identity webs and shared them with their pen pals. Then they created friendship bracelets or a craft project with their pen pals. And then they participated in a scavenger hunt at the end of the year, sort of building that community. Some of our kids this year, we don't have the combined lunches anymore, but I've had some of the kids advocating for having an opportunity to work with another grade level. They also had a I Am projects. So this was where they read I Am Me, which is a book with the author Tricia Ellen Walker. I know that there was an author Zoom, so it was an all school thing. I might be getting the wrong book. It was I Am Me by Susan Verdi, and that related to the I Am project. And that was an installation around the school. And I'll talk more about that in a second. They did identity collages where the students participated in an all-school read of Dream Street, and students Zoomed with the author. That was the Tricia Ellen Walker. And then they created identity poems and collages, which were all over the school. So then fast forward to this year, we did get the No Place for Hate designation last year. The kids signed their names. It was pretty cool. This year, we have an art installation project that you can see here. That is the projects from last year. They cut out the circles, which were the beginning of the project for this year, which was kind of cool. So we started the year asking the question, 3 questions. What do you love most about your school? What does your school mean to you? And what about your school would you want to change? And that's what, so the students sort of answered any one of those 3 questions. They wrote their response as well as their name, and then we have those up across the school. In addition, we have our 5th grade members of the group, our No Place for Hate students, are decorated a bag, a tote bag for each of the classroom teachers. And each month they deliver books to the classroom from the library that are related to sort of our inclusion theme. So No History, Women's History Month was the most recent, and one of the things that the kids did is the 5th graders went into the classrooms as guest readers in kindergarten through 2nd grade, and that was a pretty cool experience. The other thing is we have a number of posters all over the school that have a variety of quotes from women in history that are displayed around the building. And I'm trying to think if I've missed anything. But that's sort of where we are right now. So we're deepening the work. I think that one of the things that I appreciated is that when I came to the school this year, the work had already been begun. And I think that a lot of our inclusivity and sort of the way we treat each other and the way that we sort of come together was started last year. So a lot of our work this year is really deepening that. Right?
Thank you,
Thank you.
Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Strauss.
I assume I'm next in order. Introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Gina Bevilacqua, and I'm the adjustment counselor at the middle school. So I was lucky enough to be on the DEI committee last year as well, so at the district level and then also in our building. So I work closely with Sean Fitzgerald, our assistant principal, to run the group at the middle school level with students. And then last year, we also had the help of Brianna Stewart, our art teacher. So you'll see her name pop up on something I'll share as well. So last year we did earn our designation as a No Place for Hate school for this school year. And we completed 3 activities. So last year it was a little bit slow starting in terms of getting students engaged. So we counted a lot on some of our other student leader groups, which is something that we really had the goal of changing this year. So last year, a lot of our student leadership senate, Pride Club, Kindness Club, those students were really also sort of our DEI group. And this year we branched out. We wanted it to be its own club, its own thing with its own goal as well. So last year, with the help of some of those students and with the help of a group of teachers, we put on 3 No Place for Hate activities. So the first one, like you've heard about, the identity icebergs, was one that we did with the middle schoolers. We used restorative circles to hold those conversations. So in the fall, a group of staff members have been trained in restorative circles, Tier 1 training by Suffolk University. And so we used that format for those circles. We also, for activity number 2, did an anti-bullying. There was a public service announcement put out by Burger King, which I know that sounds like, why was Burger King doing anti-bullying public service announcements? But it was actually recommended by ADL. And so we used that. Our students actually really responded to that, and those discussions were awesome. It's really like a commercial that Burger King, you could find it on YouTube, that Burger King made where somebody's bullying like a hamburger and nobody says anything. And they have a whole conversation about like how mad people got about their food coming to them a certain way, but nobody was standing up for like a kid in Burger King that was being picked on. And the kids, like, they thought the video was funny, but then they also had great conversations about like, okay, we can see the connection. People were so mad for something for themselves and didn't stand up for other people. So it led to great conversations about being a bystander in the community. And our third activity was on food insecurity and equity. And we tied this to our Walk for Hunger, which while I'm up here, I have to make a plug for our Walk for Hunger coming up on April 12th, the day before April vacation. So if you see like 360 very tired children walking around Ipswich, that's what we're out there for. We're raising money for the Ipswich Community Food Pantry, and Open Door is helping us with that as well. So last year, we always do, a presentation to talk about why we're raising money for Open Door. We collect food for them at the Thanksgiving food drive. Last year, we thought it was a good opportunity to really bulk up and explain to students why that's important and why that's needed in our community. So we also did lessons on food insecurity and equity at all 3 grade levels. There were video resources, statistics, articles to read, and teachers really took that on and ran with it, to the point where this year teachers are actually using those lessons again. We don't need to do the activities for No Place for Hate, but they thought it made the Walk for Hunger more meaningful to hold those last year. So the teachers have actually asked that they roll those out again next week when we present Walk for Hunger to the kids. And we actually also, in addition to getting the designation, were the No Place for Hate Spotlight School. So I know you can't read the little picture I put up there, so I'm going to pass around if you want a copy. So that page is in the 2023-2024 resource guide that the ADL gives to schools looking to receive their No Place for Hate designation. And we were the Spotlight School last year, so they asked us questions, and me, Sean, and Brianna had a chance to talk about what the experience was like at the middle school. So there's more information on that page as well. And we also did the pledge. So I forgot to mention that if you are walking through the front lobby of the middle school, you'll see a beautiful big sign that Brianna made that's sort of a tiger interpretation of the No Place for Hate logo. And all the students, that's how we rolled it out with Identity Icebergs last year. All the students learned about the pledge and had a chance, and staff members, to sign the big paw print No Place for Hate that's in our front lobby. I actually almost carried it down here, and I got like out of the rotunda and I was like, what am I doing? Somebody's gonna have this on camera later. I'm putting it back. It's this huge canvas that's down in the front of the school. So this year, some of our goals, like I started to mention, were really to bring more students into it, to make it its own club. We have some incredibly enthusiastic students, particularly 6th graders, that are ready to set the world on fire. And they came together and came up with the name, with the help of Mr. Janolfi, our principal, of Tide Club. So Tigers for Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity. So at this point, we actually have 20 students who are in our Google Classroom, who are participating in some of our meetings in one way, shape, or another, and who are actually also participating in a training we're doing next week. So we wrote TWIG grants for restorative justice trainings to have more staff trained and also to get some of our students trained. So 20 of our students at the middle school are actually Monday and Tuesday next week getting restorative justice Tier 1 training here at the school. So they all had permission slips signed. They all have met about it. They're very excited. And lots of them have seen the circles running in their classrooms and are very enthusiastic about helping teachers to facilitate circles in the future. So 20 students next week. And then we also have a grant that's shared with the high school so that 20 staff members, 13 middle school, 7 high school, are also being trained next week. So that will increase our numbers of staff who are trained to facilitate the circles as well. And our last thing up here is that we recently had a presentation from Massachusetts Partnerships for Youth on positive school community. It was for 7th and 8th grade students, and it was really in response to language that students are using with each other that just is offensive to some, is just inappropriate, and some kids really wanting to be positive bystanders and stand up and say, we don't want that in our community. So we brought the speaker in. It was very well received by our 7th and 8th graders. And since then, there have been guidance workshops to debrief with students. So two of our school counselors, Allison Tivnan and Laura Ananian, went to 8th grade already and ran circles to debrief on the conversation. And then they go to 7th grade next week. And students were very receptive to the conversations and actually asked, like, can we have more of these conversations? And the really positive thing, I think kids took it really seriously. And the few who didn't were really in the minority. And the kids who did were empowered to sort of call that behavior out in their peers. I thought that was really powerful for them to see, like, we do want to do something about it. We do want to make it better, and our voices are louder than the others. And finally, I just thought I had asked some of our TIDE members if they could talk about a little about why they joined TIDE and what diversity, equity, and inclusion means to them. And I think one of our 6th graders who's attending the training next week really said it best. She wrote, "Diversity, equity, inclusion means to me that we're a wholesome community and we support each other no matter what our family is like, no matter the color of our skin or our religion. It means that you feel safe. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is important in our school because we want our school to be a safe place where people can be themselves and feel like they belong. We want our school to be a role model that we're kind, respectful of others and tigers, and that we care about making better decisions and changes." So we're super appreciative for the opportunity from the Traverso Weatherall grants and just to be able to be here to tell you about what we're doing. And I'm very excited to hear students' feedback after they go through the training next week. Thank you.
Great. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. And as the high school reps come up, I just want to point out that, the adjustment counselor was added into our budget from the ESSER funds. That was an issue in the budget. And this is just like really good evidence of what's happening.
It was the high school one that was.
The high school one. Okay.
All adjustment counselors.
Are doing really important, good work that's impacting students. Yeah. Sorry, got that wrong.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Shields. I'm the Bright Academic Coordinator at the high school, and I participate in the district DEI team, but we have sort of 2 teams. So the district DEI team is myself, Angelica De La Cruz, Benji DeSources, and Colette Love. And as we heard earlier from robotics, our students are triple booked. Benji and Colette are playing right now in there and couldn't come in and join us. So, but we also are trying to grow the team as well. And we have a high school based team that fluctuates between 3 to 12 members because everyone's really busy. But we have more staff that come to the high school team meetings as well.
Just so to start off, I'd like to say an overview of what we've been doing the past year and this year. Last year we sent out a survey. We were just getting started up, so we sent out this culture survey asking how students felt in the community or just the school. And once we did that, we kind of talked to teachers about it and met with them in their meetings, their Thursday meetings, kind of giving them feedback on what students had said and showing them some statistics we thought were interesting. This year, we've continued with some of similar work. Many students said on the survey last year that they'd like to continue with this work and work like it. So here we are. We first started with, we met with Mr. Mitchell talking about we'd like to do a couple of things for Heritage Months. So as you might have seen when you walk in through the high school, we have a big bulletin board now. And right now we have the Women's History Month. We update that. Last month, we also had Black History Month, which is great. And as well as that, we hold restorative circles for these Heritage Months that Ms. Galora holds, and soon, hopefully, students will hold since we also had the training. Last week, I was a part of that. It was really amazing. I absolutely loved it. And I can't wait to apply it for when I go to college and much more. But yeah, and as well as that, we've also been fundraising money for organizations. So for Hispanic Heritage Month last September, we raised money for the Latino Equity Fund of Boston, and we raised over $200. And for Black History Month, we raised over $200 as well for the North Shore chapter of the NAACP. Yeah, so part of our work is also the No Place for Hate activities that we've been doing. One of those has been the series that we started in the fall. It's an identity and culture series, so we've kind of went through a slideshow talking about students, part of the statistics we had from the survey last year and how students felt in our community. And we also held our very first, hopefully annual Culture Fest. It went great. Students had the opportunity to bring in a piece of their culture, whether it was food and activity that they felt really represented them and their family. It could have been as simple as a card game or just even a fun craft, but many brought food and a lot of people enjoyed that. So it was very exciting. And that also concluded our second part of the No Place for Hate activity. And then for our next part, we're gonna send out the culture survey again, and we're gonna start up a series on microaggressions, as it is something that we've noticed a lot of students in our community experience, especially the students in minority groups. So we really wanna touch on that and kind of help our school become a more equitable and inclusive place.
I'm going to read the parts of the other two students as well. So thinking about our impact, that's something that we're really trying to do is like measure. So we gave our culture survey. It took us a long time to like craft it, work it. And so last year we gave it at the end of the year. It was very long. It was one that the ADL provided to us, and we tweaked it a little bit. This year we gave the survey again. We just gave it last week. And we hope to give it at the end of the year as well, so we can sort of measure our impact on the work we're doing. We made it a lot shorter this year, and we really kind of, based on the survey last year, based on things that we discuss in meetings, we hear a lot about microaggressions. It's sort of like the biggest issue that we would say is occurring at Ipswich High School. So we knew going into it that we really wanted to focus in on that. So that will turn into our third activity. I could share it all, but so one thing we asked was we wanted to know if students knew what microaggressions were, and around 30% of the population doesn't even know what microaggressions are. So again, that makes us feel like, yes, this is the right work moving forward, is to educate people what microaggressions are. But some of the data is also a little disheartening in terms of like who's experiencing or seeing microaggressions a lot. We have upwards of like 60% of Black and African-American students are experiencing microaggressions or witnessing them. And then, our non-binary students are seeing them up to 1 to 2 times a week. So we really feel like this is the right work. We're headed in the right direction. And hopefully our data will show that. But we have a couple quotes. So after each of our activities that we've done, we've surveyed how it's been received and taken feedback, what we could do better. So we pulled 3 quotes from after Culture Fest. And so the first, and they're all anonymous surveys. So the first student said, Culture Fest made me and my friends feel that even though we are part of different culture, students wrote these, I didn't edit them. I'll just read it word for word. It made me and my friends that are part of different cultures feel good inside, because the exact word my friends used were that we felt noticed. Another student said, it meant that I felt less alone because my country's food was there and my identity. And the third student said, it was definitely a change from what I was used to in middle and elementary school. As a daughter of parents who immigrated here, it means a lot to be even less scared to share something that is a part of me.
Thank you very much.
Well, pieces to wrap up. I would be remiss not to note that 3 seniors, Angelica, Benji, and Colette, Benji and Colette, who are playing strings right now, as all our students do so many, have been inaugural members of the district-wide DEI team, meaning that they not only have gone to their school-based meetings, they've been with all of us adults every month leading this work. And I can't wait. I'm going to tear up. I can't wait to see what you go off into the world and do and come back. Bring it back to us for sure. So just thinking forward a little bit to wrap up, we've been thinking a lot. In our last meeting, we're talking about how do we know we're making an impact? What's the data we can look at? Things like the survey, hearing from students to know the impact this work is having on our students. We're continuing with the district-wide DEI team, even when we finish all the No Place for Hate initiatives. We're going from just single beautiful events happening to the way we talk and the way we communicate. We are going to continue developing leadership roles for students. We're thrilled that so many middle school students are participating in the Restorative Circles work. We want to grow our designations. And in particular, you heard Gina say how that 6th grade class was so excited. Well, guess what? They were the 5th grade class last year that at Doyon, there were so many 5th graders, we had to pull names out of a hat to see who would participate. So we're working on those transitions between 5th and 6th and 8th through 9th to really grow the DEI program. We're happy to answer any questions that you have, and thank you for letting us present tonight.
Thank you very much for presenting. Do people have questions?
Yeah, the comment and question. First, thank you all for joining us tonight. Really wonderful all the way around. I loved in particular seeing the consistent themes across the schools. I think about the students going from elementary to middle to high school and it building on, continuing to build as they move through the schools. Curious if there are connections going on either between teachers or students across the different schools. I'm thinking we've got certain areas where we have high school students participating in elementary schools events and making further connections. Are there things like that going on?
That would definitely be something that we could grow in. We felt like we wanted to get the school-based work and community and language set. I love the idea. And we had talked a little bit about having high school students go to the elementary schools. We talked a little bit about high school students going to the Tide Club at the middle school. I really see that, the work we're ready for next year, which is exciting.
That's great. Thank you.
Go ahead, Jenny.
It's great. It's really great. It's lovely to see. I love the iceberg idea because it's true. People, whether you want to or not, you're quick to make a quick judgment. It's naturally, hate to say that, but it's so important to realize that there's so much more. So thank you for doing this. I know how important it is to include and respect all voices and to make sure stereotypes are not used to bully someone who may have different ideas or values than others. I had a question for you, Peter. Okay. I know there's the tote books and there's picture books that are put in there. Where can I find the list of books that are put in there? Is there
That is a great question. That those books.
Okay.
I have to refer to.
Okay, I'll email you because I'm sure you have a lot going on.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Actually, could you guys come to the, yeah, I'll just give,
Transferring questions only
yeah.
Oh, yeah, just in case you're interested, because in part of my work, we're, of course, being in elementary school, like what the 5th graders can kind of understand is very different from what kindergartners can understand. So through No Place for Hate, they worked with the ADL to kind of assemble this entire website of books, but it's based off of, you can find topics on diversity and race and all these things. So they have a really great website too. I'd be happy to share with. I think I probably still have your email address somewhere. But it's a really great resource that, they recommend anytime you do one of the activities, you can always pop back there to find something that's really accessible for students and, kind of cover a wide range of topics for lots of different students, as I said, in an accessible and meaningful way. Yes, age appropriate, because again, these are big conversations that we want to make sure that they understand, but again, at an age appropriate level. So we're happy to share that with you too. But it's through No Place for Hate. They've of course partnership with ADL. So they have like a massive library online where they have all the links and everything for ordering and, you know, based on different topics and things like that. So it's a great resource.
Thank you. Thank you.
For all of the folks out there. So our librarian has a real passion for the work, and one of the things that I didn't mention maybe is that in the tote bags, they have the books, which I can get you a list of some of the books that are there. They then become part of the classroom library that are available to all of the kids and sort of are highlighted. So it's not just here's some books, but they're actually available to the students and the teachers to use in the classrooms. So I think that's how the literature, I think, spreads that impact. So
Thank you.
Those who are not aware, Mr. Holtz challenged his students for the Doyonathon Reading Challenge.
Doyon devours books.
Doyon devours books. And the deal was if they read X number of books, they got to decide what color hair Mr.
So
Holtz
great.
was going to sport for a while.
Is Amy doing the same thing? She in?
I'll have to take that up
I
with
saw
Amy. So, needless to say, that the students rose far above the occasion and chose rainbow as the winning the winning poll. So, Mr. Holtz is sporting a rainbow haircut for
Nice job.
a long while. So he's all in. Thank you.
I might set the bar a little higher next year for the number of minutes. Initially, I'd said 50,000 minutes, and they did that by Wednesday. They ended up actually doubling it, 117,000 minutes school-wide. But I did have a parent, Stephanie Murray, has a salon, and she actually did this professionally. So it's going to be here for a while.
Better raise the bar. Who knows what it'll do next year? Wow. Wow, amazing.
I had just a couple of comments. I really appreciate just the really thoughtful development of activities and involving the students in it. I think that makes such a difference. I mean, I was reading the presentation and thinking, well, why are the schools doing different things? Why aren't the elementary schools doing the same things? But if they're really student-driven projects, that I just think that's powerful and effective. And I also appreciate it. I did actually manage to read this online. I scrolled in and it was a little blurry, but I managed to read it. And one of the things I think it came from this was I also just appreciate that you're sort of adjusting to things as they come. You know, an activity might go a certain way, or you realize like, oh, we have to regroup these students because this isn't working well, and what's going to make this activity go well. And so that just, or maybe starting with lower stakes conversations to get people more comfortable and then sort of upping it. So that's just really smart. And I think it's more powerful that way. And I also love you noted that you're seeing effects not only on the students, but on the staff too. I mean, everybody's sort of learning together. And I do this as part of my professional work. I did the iceberg exercise at my job. And so, to see it started at this young age and sort of trying to bake it into the culture of our schools and our communities is really great to see. So thank you for all of the work. It's impressive.
It's interesting because and what we're trying to do is grow the student voice through all of this so that the students are more involved and so that we, the adults, are listening to what the students
They need.
feel and need and are saying so that we can support them in making the changes that need to happen. There's definitely room for us to grow and change as different issues come up, as different conversations happen, different groups forming along the way. So there's plenty of opportunity. And that, although we've been at this for 4 years as a district, it's still, I would say, in the infancy stages of it.
Yeah. But you're really getting stuff done. I mean, it's great.
Maybe a little bit along those lines, I'd be not for tonight, but to think about as you, the staff, are thinking about things that you're doing, what might apply for some of us that we could or should be participating in with you ourselves? Would love your thoughts on that in a future time.
And I love that there is such a engaged group of at least 4th, 5th, 6th graders that, you know, the pipeline's strong for keeping this stuff up. And I love hearing from students. So thanks, Angelica, for coming. And
It just that comment made me, I wanted to share also that, sorry, I'm losing my voice. That we also surveyed the staff about, last year we gave the same exact survey to staff and students. This year, we sort of wanted to drill down on certain areas. And with staff, we asked about how comfortable they are having questions about race and social justice. And it was a mix for sure, but we had comments, places where people could share either if they felt comfortable doing it, like what advice you have for staff that might not, and if you don't feel comfortable, like what could we do to help? And there was definitely, the people who were comfortable doing it said, the more you do it, the easier it gets. Listen to students, but also I think a big piece is like doing the work, read the books, join the groups. Teachers, a lot, I would say, I haven't done the percent yet, but I would say an overwhelming amount of teachers want more PD really focusing in how do we do this? These conversations are important. We don't want to misstep when we do it. We want to be thoughtful. We want to be prepared. So I think the same might apply to other adults as well, to like get trained, do the work, look at your bias. I think it's important.
Yeah, thank you.
thank you. Other questions? Thank you very much for coming. It's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Great work.
Yes, the feed this evening is not live. They're rerunning a previously shown, and it's in reverse as well, from what I understand. Yeah, I'm sitting over there, and it's.
Oh, I saw that. Me
Yeah.
too. It's like mirrored image.
So that's.
Freaks me out.
Yeah.
confused.
They started tandeming at the
So as far as I know, it is being recorded.
Do we need to double check with them that it's being recorded? Because
I will step
we're going to
out.
hear about it if
and
it's
check.
not. It's not being recorded?
I don't know if it's being recorded.
It's not, yeah, no, we know it's not live, but I would like to
Okay,
double check
alright.
if it's being
And-
recorded, if we could take a
Wanna show
30-second
yourself,
pause.
or-
Do we have Student Opportunity Act review? Or do them first? Okay.
I have their slides. Out and check on this other issue.
All right. We'll just wait to see if we're being recorded.
So we weren't as highly rated as the show.
Is last week's meeting? I don't know. That's
Is it on
happened
right now?
before where,
It's a repeat. That's
I'm
should
not
be-
sure. The backwards one.
Just red? Like, what do we?
The school board's on repeats.
Asking for 1979.
On TV.
The planning board is live. Oh, okay. All right.
So leave it to be.
They got priority over us.
Anything
Watching paint
black
dry
and white. Watching paint.
from 7 to 10 Thursday night.
Sorry, you said you didn't need to project your slides, but we've prepared them, so I hope it's okay. if we
It's-
do.
I should
it's-
do that.
We also have them in our folder.
Yeah, they're useful, not necessary.
Well, we're all hooked up. Would you like me to go check with the booth?
I can go do it if you want. Ryan, do you want me to run out there and double check? Sure.
There we go. Oh, there's us. Awesome. Thank you. All right.
All right, so do we want to start or we want to just wait?
Give it a minute, whatever you like.
Yeah, let's just give it 20 seconds.
Sure.
Oh, boy.
Are live.
Oh.
Apparently on a different channel or something like that. And most importantly, we are recording.
We are recording and we're live on a different channel.
Right.
Thanks, Matt.
You know my team. It's not on 31. It's not on 32.
98 or 22? What are the other channels?
Verizon? I don't know.
Oh, it's Verizon. Anywho, here we are. We are being definitely recorded. Perhaps we're live on some channel. So welcome, Ryan
friends.
Cohen, to the Pedestrian and Cycling Advisory Board to give us a quick presentation on their work.
Yes, thank you. Brian Hone, 29 Upper River Road, Chair of the Pedestrian Cycling Advisory Board. Chris Chapman.
Chris Chapman, One Massanutten Road, co-chair of the board.
So thank you very much, Madam Chair, for giving us a few minutes. We'll be brief. We are a relatively new board. We've been around almost 2 years. We were created after there were a number of deaths in town, and the town formed the Cycle Safe Working Group. One of the major recommendations of the Cycle Safe Working Group was to create a standing committee for which I'll go into, and the select board did do that, and that's how our committee came to be. We have a narrow focus, which is design review. So when ZBA, planning, DPW, utilities, MassDOT, these are all the people who do actual construction on our roads in this town. I think there's like 6 state agencies. Put out a plan, we review it. It is non-binding. This is similar to how the design review committee works for the planning board and the ZBA, reviewing architecture. So that's our narrow focus. So mostly we work for DPW. And then the broader focus is to assist in planning. And ideally, we would like to start working on grants as well, because there's quite a lot of transportation-related grant money. So our goal is to provide safe movement through this town for those who aren't in automobiles. Really, our focus has mostly been on student age population primarily. So why are we here? We're here to introduce ourselves to you. There are a large number of programs coming down the pike in the next couple of years that are going to affect the schools and how our kids move. Some of them we've already done the reviews. For instance, the road out here up to Rowley, we did a review. There was no plan to do a shoulder. We got in front of that one. Lord Square, crosswalk upgrades will be going in, I think this summer. And we're looking at 1A all the way through town, all the way to Hamilton in the next year. And we're looking at High Street coming. And so we would like to invite this board to participate in those reviews. And so there's a few ways we could do that. And I'd be interested in your ideas. One would be to, we're a cross board. We have representatives from different boards. We have representatives from planning. So y'all could send a representative to us either for, all the meetings. We're 1 hour once a month, or just for reviews that are applicable to the schools. That would be an easy thing to do, and it would not even need to be a member of this board. It could be as long as the person could speak with your voice. So that is something we'd like to see. And then hopefully we can establish a partnership with your board. We have met with, all the communities around us are starting to build up these kinds of boards because it's an underrepresented population. And if we see like Beverly and Salem, who have been doing this a few more years than we have, their businesses are flourishing where they've put in all the cycling and sidewalk infrastructure. And both of them, in meeting with their boards, have stated that the most important thing was that they worked with the schools. That really in Beverly, it was a partnership with the schools that allowed them to look at where kids want to walk, where families want to walk, how people want to, kids want to ride their bike to school. And I've included you had 2 civics students, can you go back one, do survey IMS, all the IMS kids, and one came out with 7% and one came out with 8% either walking or bicycling to school. I'd like to see that number a lot higher.
Is that an IMS pop? Is that an?
That's of the IMS kids. It was just
IMS
IMS
kids.
students. And I'd like to see that, and I think we would all, because we know there's lots of studies that developmentally kids moving freely is a really important part of their maturing process. Sorry, I'm rambling a bit. The last piece would be if we could get a partnership going. There are quite a large number of grants that we could be applying for. Our board does not have standing. So for instance, let's just jump to the last slide. Safe routes to school is the big one. Communities around us have gotten, I think Manchester by the Sea got almost $500,000. I can't remember the exact number. The way they did it is the schools have to officially take the lead, but a community organization such as ours did most of the legwork. So that would be another area, I think, if we could start establishing a partnership that we could try to be getting grant money. So I'll give you a quick for instance on that. When we were fighting to get the Linebrook sidewalk, the state rep for Safe Routes to School said, we would love to fund this, but we need the schools involved. And this was before your time. We couldn't make that happen. So that's my pitch. It's that we would love to work with you and get our kids walking to school.
We're here to work as a set of facilitators. He's busy. All of the teachers and administrators in town are busy. There's multiple requests for your time, but for grant opportunities like Safe Routes to School in particular, there's data that we need to collect periodically throughout the year for each of the school populations for us to be able to apply to those grants. And when we do go out and apply, we are scored against how active we are within the program. So for the 3 schools within the district, they are currently recognized by Safe Routes to School. But we don't have any alliance partners within the town, so that's an opportunity to kind of raise our standing within this federally funded grant program. And then if we develop that working relationship, we could help facilitate collecting data. When we do this, the town does walk and bike to school days, collecting data on the percent increase in walkers and bikers to each school on those days. That all needs to be captured. We could help facilitate bike rodeos or distributing safety gear like lights and helmets and whatnot to the student population. So our purpose here isn't to suddenly, overburden the teachers and administrators and the school committee with even more work. It's just to say, hello world, we exist. And we'd like to help work with the school and with each of the schools to try to make that area just a safer place for the students to walk and bike in the town that they live in.
Okay. Do you have a sense of, you gave an example of Safe Routes said they would have loved to help fund that Linebrook sidewalk, which I love that sidewalk. Do you have a sense of what other types of things they have funded grants for? Like, is it mostly roads? Is it mostly sidewalks and crosswalks, or is it parking
really-
lot,
all those
lights
things,
and?
right. It doesn't only have to be sidewalks, crosswalks. It's really anything kind of school adjacent, infrastructure adjacent around the schools, or if we identify safety concerns around vulnerable populations getting to and from the schools. It doesn't have to be directly on school property. But if we identify that there's no safe access from a population center within the town to get within a reasonable walking distance to a school, it could be flashing beacons. So cars see that there are kids waiting at a crosswalk to get to a school, particularly around Ward Square. It could be helping with planning studies. So when MassDOT repaves and restripes a section of the road, that they're helping to structure that new striping plan in a way that takes walkers, kids walking to and from school into consideration, so that as cars are coming into and out of parking lots, they're not being funneled into areas where kids are walking. But Kate, I guess to answer your question, it is a pretty broad array of infrastructure improvements that we could go out and vie for if we were more active within this program.
Great. I have kids one in middle school now and 2 in Winthrop. And one of the reasons why I don't let them, the 2 that are in there are too young right now, but my formal fifth grader, I would have let walk, but the 5 corners, which is, especially as a kid, like you have to look this way here, you have to look that way. And so that's always been the problem. I'm overly protective as well. But that's like my concern is that area. So if this could be part of your program, I think it's excellent because we
Five
live very
Corners is
close.
under design review right now.
It is?
Yeah.
Good. Good. So I still don't know if I let my kids walk to school, but I think that's a help. I live like a half mile. It's embarrassing.
I think what you'll find in it, my perception of Ipswich is we have a lot of great infrastructure with these couple pinch points here and there that just, there's no safe way for the kids past. So
And there are some blind sidewalks. There are definitely some by the Whipple House and by Dunkin' Donuts that
the sidewalk by the Whipple House is under current.
or
review. We're at a
the
transformation.
crosswalk. The crosswalk.
Part of the reason we're here is, I keep saying this kind of in a flip way, but we're at a transformative time right now, and people don't realize what's coming. We're going to have bike lanes through the center of town, whether we want it or not. MassDOT says we have to. We're going to be redoing the 5 Corners and the intersection because the state says we have to, up by the Whipple House. We're going to be doing High Street. There's a chance the DPW here's a great project we could work on something like this for, right? The sidewalks on High Street could be mixed use sidewalks like they do these in Brookline with little strips of asphalt so it's not for road cyclists, it's for families with kids, right? And we could try to figure out a route that would connect downtown through High Street, right, to Winthrop, to IHS, and this is the kind of thing where these changes are gonna happen in the next 5 years. And now our town staff is so busy that most of them are trying to survive next week.
Yep, I know.
So we'd love to work on 20 years from now.
This might be a basic, did you have a question? Okay. I just have one. This might be a stupid question. Maybe you've answered it. Are you advocating for your own initiatives, or do you find you're kind of piggybacking on things that are happening that you're trying to bring your perspective to and make sure align with your goals of
I think it's a
pedestrian
mix. I
safety?
mean,
Okay.
when we work with DPW and planning, we don't tell them, right? We don't have a head count. We don't have any funding. We can't tell them to go, restripe a certain section of road.
Yeah.
Right. Projects come to us when we work with planning and DPW where there are plans in place and there are certain, infrastructure activities that are happening within the town. We try to advocate for adults who are walking and biking and seniors in town who may have other mobility issues, but also school age kids, right? That's part of our ongoing effort is where we get kind of pulled into ongoing planning and DPW activities. But particularly for Safe Routes to School, we're trying to be more active where there are opportunities where we could go out and chase grants or host activities, host bike rodeos, if we were a little more active. And that wouldn't necessarily tie up planning or DPW, but it's kind of an ongoing, safety reminder set of exercises for school age kids just to make sure that they know how to safely navigate their way around town.
Right. Other questions for this group?
Thank you for coming tonight. I think the work you're doing is terrific. Could you talk a little bit about the need for the town to collect student walking and biking data? What does that look like? Is that coming from the schools? Coming from you?
That's a great question. There were 2 students who approached me actually about their civics projects, and I suggested, because we've been wanting this data, we've actually been known to park a board member at an intersection and watch the kids which crosswalks they use and stuff, and that can get you arrested if you're not careful. But that's how we've done it. Like when we did the Lord Square review, we watched where the kids were walking, because there's this whole theory of desired path. People are going to go where they're going to go, and you can paint your lines wherever they are, but they're going to go that way. So when we were looking at where should the flashers go, we were going, how are the kids getting to and from? And I think that's really important. So I suggested to these 2 kids, we collect where would you like to walk and where do you currently walk? Like, where do you want to walk that you can't, or bike? And where do you currently go? And so that's, we have lots of data on adults. You can sign up for things like Strava Metro, which is Strava is the app a lot of cyclists and runners use to track. And you can, as a city, you can download all the data for your city. So we have like heat maps of the whole city and where people, but we don't have much for kids. And I don't think the schools would appreciate it if I asked the kids to carry trackers for me. So that surveys seem to be the way to go.
Okay. Thank you.
We want to have a little discussion tonight about how we picture our involvement, or do we want to just think about it and talk about it at a future meeting, or what does the committee feel our role could be in helping this?
I guess one question. When would you want this to start? And I say that because we tend to be not so active as a group over the summer. So is that something you would hope would start like as soon as possible, come September?
So our reviews come in bursts and they're a little unpredictable. We'll get a call from DPW. Hey, can you review these 2 things? And we'll, so the simplest and easiest thing to do might be that when the next review's coming up, we get in touch with you and you send someone to the meeting. And it's, like I said, it's 1 hour. That might be the easiest way to do it, as long as that person is empowered to speak for your board.
Yeah.
So that would be, that's a long way of saying I'm not sure.
Okay.
If you want to take part in the ongoing, because we're always planning and we're always looking to the future, you can send someone to our next meeting and just keep coming. That we're first Thursday of each month. But if I understand your Thursdays too, so
Right.
we would
Just
switch
remember
our
time.
meeting night for you because you're the grown-up board.
I mean, I think that's also to say there's maybe 2 modes of working together. As Brian is saying, if projects come up and come for comment in front of our board, we could certainly pull in some or all of you, or even present a summary of our comments in front of this committee and just kind of ad hoc ask for feedback. That would be, the structure that would be as projects come up. But I think if you're saying you're kind of inherently less busy during the summertime than you are during budget season, that might be right for kind of a long-term planning discussion, where we may not have a direct project in mind, but if there are concerns that are brought in front of your committee that you don't really have a good mechanism to address them, or kind of planning infrastructure oriented, it would be good to have kind of a larger discussion about those, just to document what the concerns are and add them to our Complete Streets list of future projects. So as MassDOT or DPW or utilities start to propose projects in the future, we already have that feedback it's documented, and we get to roll it into those
It's on
future
that map.
programs.
Right. This map, by the way, is what one of the things we'd like to do is have the major boards in the town sign off on a map that says this is a vision for how we're going to move our kids around, and this is a map that our board put together. We'd like to get other boards to work with us, review it, say, yeah, this is good, right? It's because if you look at those roads, about half of them are about to be under construction. Right?
And we've made feedback, we discussed with our, design review board. Most of us have school-age kids, right? So children's safety as they're walking, biking is kind of front of mind for a lot of us. So you see a lot of those sidewalk upgrades, bike lanes are directly either in front of schools, to schools. There's an artery of infrastructure we're trying to propose here. But it would be great to get your feedback also, so we don't feel as though we're kind of advocating for the schools and for students, but you're also collecting that same feedback and applying it where we agree and providing, filling in the blind sides where they may occur.
I'll say sorry, go ahead.
No, go.
I'm supportive of it in general. I particularly like if our partnership helps to put you in a better position for grants and funding to advance the work that you're doing. Thinking perhaps there's a connection with our facilities subcommittee, rather than maybe that's something unique. It's at least the closest of the working groups and subcommittees that we have. I'd be happy to go to one of the upcoming meetings, do it as a one-off, come back and maybe further discuss what the best way for us to do it as a trial, or I shouldn't say as a
Do
trial,
that.
but start there with better information. I can better recommend what might work. I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, you do that. I mean, the other thing I was thinking is we have, if someone's going to go to the meetings and sort of be representing the voice of the school committee, I feel like it should be sort of, we have these official like liaison positions that, you know, we have someone on the climate resiliency committee and, you know, STEAM team and strategic planning, IEF, like we've a lot of liaison positions. So we could have, and those people are sort of assigned to those positions and go to the meetings as much as they can and speak on the school committee for the school committee and then report back to us sort of what's going on. So we could entertain something like that if we feel like we have the capacity to add another liaison position. And the other thing I would think is we might not need to go to every one of your meetings if there are things that that might not apply that month or.
It's very bursty, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, we'll get a bunch of designs thrown at us and we'll go through them. And then sometimes we go 3, 4, 5 months without a design that needs to be reviewed.
Yeah.
There's a cycle to the construction in town.
Cycle.
And we are
Intended.
we are involved with the Safe Routes to School program in terms
Yes.
of the
Yeah.
walking and biking events and things like that. So certainly knowing that there's a group out there that could help
Would be-
write grants,
Yeah, I mean, that's.
I'm all in.
an
That's
exciting-
how,
We're always
Thank you.
looking.
That's
for
how
help
a couple of
funding.
communities around us do it, is they have a board or a committee like ours who helps out.
Mhm.
So, you know, maybe we can talk offline about how to do that.
Yeah. And I mean, that,
We can talk to one of the other communities, I'm sure if you have time to have a meeting, we could bring in one of the folks from Manchester who was
Mhm.
successful to talk us through
Okay.
how they were able to
Yep.
get that grant money.
yeah, I mean, it's great work. And obviously, you know, safety of students is always top of mind for us, safety of everybody, but our charge is, you know, safety of students. So it's important work that you're doing. And I would like to see us involved in it. It's just figuring out the best way to do it. So
I like the liaison idea. Also thinking about just sort of timing for this year. It would, if we identified someone now, I mean, in this moment, in short order, have them involved for a few months. We readjust over the summer. We redo some of the assignments so we can adjust.
yeah,
that
we
too.
always sort of,
Yeah.
in the summer at our sort of retreat or regroup meeting, we sort of reassign out subcommittees because we have turnover on the board obviously every year. So we sort of do that in the summer. So yeah, we could maybe have someone go, depending on where you are in your cycle.
I think that would probably be a fine timeline. We don't have, the only pressing, I will say there's only one pressing issue, which is 1A through town, is that has passed its 25% design review. So if this board wanted to review those plans, that would be something you might want to move on.
Yeah. So I guess I'd say if anything comes up between now and the end of the year, that the school year that is, that's, you know, you think you would
raise
want
it
us
to
involved
you
in,
and-
just reach out to me and we'll
That'd be
get
great.
someone there.
I'd be happy. That's a
And
good way
then
to
we
do it.
can talk about adding a liaison position this summer. Does that sound reasonable to everybody?
I like that suggestion. Yeah.
Great.
Sure.
Great.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you
Glad
all for
you're
your time.
doing
Thank
important
you for your
work.
work.
Thanks. So next up, we have a Student Opportunity Act review and approval. So this is going to be presented by Tracy Wagner.
Oh, hi, school committee. I have paper copies of the Student Opportunity Act. I'm aware that it was sideways in your folder. You can thank Desi for that and how they had, I know, sorry if you're all like this.
I downloaded and somehow was able to flip it. But
So does anyone need a paper copy to reference?
Yeah, if you have
Yes,
one.
here, I'll just pass them around.
Thank you.
I didn't prepare a slideshow because all the material that's required by the state is in the report. So I didn't want to siphon out particular pieces to show you. So this is the Student Opportunity Act. It is a requirement of the most recent Chapter 70 legislation. And what it's about, according to me, is that you have to show as a school district how you are taking and in what amount you're taking a part of Chapter 70 funding that's given to the town and to the school district, and you're spending it on the most needing students. So the state defines a lot of the process, and every 3 years, and so the last time we did this, I looked it up today, was 2020, and then because of COVID, there was a second piece that came in 2021. So this is a new Student Opportunity Act. It's a 3-year plan that every 3 years we write. So I wrote this, and I'll talk about how, and it needs to be approved by the school committee. And then you submit it to the state. They take a couple months to review it. And then over the following 3 years, you have to submit back evidence to the state on how it's going, essentially. So it's not a grant. There's not a certain amount of money we get based on this. It's part of the Chapter 70 requirements. So I don't know if Tom has anything more to add to that, but that's what I understand.
No, that's basically it.
That's great, Tom.
Just to
So-
remind, just to remind the group, the last couple of years to support the funding for the Student Opportunity Act, each of the last 2 years, we've gotten a supplemental appropriation. For example, in last fall's town meeting, we got an additional $122,000, and that had to do in many ways with the work and the process around the state for supplemental funding for Student Opportunity Act. So we did get an additional bump in FY24 for $122,000 through Chapter 70, and that's likely to continue.
That's fantastic. So what the
Excuse me.
state does is they give a template that we have to complete. So this is the template that goes to the state. They give us the data and say what we have to look at. So the process is that we review our MCAS data, MCAS being the data the state says we need to use. There's not choice there, in grades 3, 5, 8, and 10. And you need to have that data looked at by different groups of people. So our administrators looked at it to begin, and myself and Dr. Blake. And you have to identify a subgroup within that MCAS data that is not performing at the same level as all students. And you find what the biggest gap is. So the first part of the process, which is talked about, is we reviewed this MCAS data for grades 3, 5, 8, and 10 across multiple years. So it's not the same group of kids going through the grades. It's those different grades. So you're looking for trends. And so it's very clear in Ipswich that the trend was that our low income students, which is about 20% of our total student population, are scoring differently than as compared to all students in MCAS. And then you dig into the data. And so when we looked into the data, and this is what the report talks about, what we found, and I'm glad that we are through this going to be able to address it, is that in grades 3 and 5, when you looked at the percentage of low-income students over the past couple of years, as opposed to all students, there was a big gap. Our low-income students were scoring substantially lower. And so then we looked at 8th grade, and interestingly, in 8th grade, we saw that the gap closed very much, and then it opens up even wider again in 10th grade. And so then I looked at, well, I was curious. It was like, oh, who's in the low-income student population? So I looked at, are they English language learners? Are they students of color? Are they boys? Are they girls? And look at those pieces, and then propose a plan back. So in proposing the plan back, what the state says we have to do is we look at our school improvement plans and our district strategy for improvement, and we really hone in on some of the pieces there, and then present them back to the state as our evidence-based practices for how over the next 3 years we're going to close all those gaps. So what the report details, and what I'm seeking school committee approval for tonight, is how to close those gaps. So because our school improvement plans and our strategy from district improvement had already really looked at that data, there was a really close alignment, which is very good. And so I write about in the plan using our tiered interventions. So you heard about this a lot from especially the elementary principals when they did their school improvement presentations. It's how to help students in a classroom who are learning at perhaps different levels and need different levels of need. So this in particular will be addressed by our tiered systems of support, our new elementary ELA curriculum, which I will be back on the 4th with our Compass team to talk about, and literacy coach, which we're writing another PAIN grant for, and our literacy leads, which next time you'll see the Compass representatives, that's our teacher leadership around content, will be literacy leads next year. So I write about that in the report. And that's very much a match at the elementary level for closing the gap between all students and low-income students. At the middle school level, the principal is going to propose using our educators in some of the after-school time to do additional tutoring for kids and to be creative and flexible about how to use those supports. And at the high school level, we're bringing in a class that would be for students who need more support on MCAS, but a very high interest, great books, rich texts elective course run by a teacher in the English department who is very student-centered and engaging. And so it'd be an elective targeted very creatively for students who need support in MCAS, but also very high interest, energizing class. We also have, and you heard about this during budgeting, special math course support for our English language learners. And it also connects to all the DEI work that you heard about, because there are requirements in the Student Opportunity Act about doing, looking at texts to assure that there's diverse representation and doing DEI work. So the report does is put all those pieces together, and over the next 3 years, we'll need to report back in very concrete ways how those interventions I listed are closing the gap in those MCAS scores. I think what else? So the process was, we talked about it as an admin team. We connected it with the school improvement plans and the strategy for district improvement, which had all gone out to faculty. The principals all brought data and conversations around the interventions to parent councils. So the parent councils all gave feedback, and I worked with the pupil service director to give a survey to our CPAC, who is a special education advisory group, who all gave feedback on a survey. So the last step of that process is to bring it to you to answer any questions and hopefully get your approval so that I can submit it to the state.
Thank you. Questions for Tracy? I had a question on the gaps that you identified. I think it was comparing 2 years. What's our historic gaps? I'm just thinking, are those always, have those always been gaps? Like pre-pandemic, I think like
That's a great
27, I know you probably don't have that
question.
data off the top of your head, but
I'm
2017, 18, 19, pre-pandemic.
Yeah,
Are
I'm more
those-
familiar with the current data just because that's what I looked at for the report. But I can remember, and this is going on my 10th year here, I can remember going back even to former principals having conversations when we would sit and look at MCAS data. And in my recollection, so sort of an anecdotal answer, it has often been around low-income students and all students. And that low-income student group encompassing different demographics of our students, but there being a gap there.
Yeah.
What was really noticeable to me, and in my recollection different in the past couple of years, was that gap closed in the 8th grade, which to me speaks really highly of what we're doing all the way up through 8th. I always say MCAS is absolutely the work and the accomplishment of the teacher right in front of the students, but also all the students and teachers leading up to that moment. So I'm really proud of that. And we need to take a hard look at why the gap widens again in the 10th grade, whether it's about tracking or particular course sequencing or. So I'm curious to look at that. But in my recollection, that has been something that I've noticed in the past and that we've talked about.
Yeah, it just seemed to be a pretty big jump
Mm-hmm.
from, the 2022 to 2023. So I didn't know if that was a gap that's getting bigger every year
Yeah.
or it's been present but stable and then it really jumped
I
that
think it's
year. I
been
don't know.
present and stable. Notably different is the closing of the gap in the 8th grade
grade.
and in middle school. And I'll be curious to see, I mean, I don't want to hope that the trend continues in next year's MCAS data, but I'll be curious to see if it does. And if it doesn't, then we can look at different interventions we're already putting into place, especially around MTSS and the tiered classroom support, to see what might be helping it. And also when we bring in the new ELA elementary curriculum, I think that that'll be really interesting to follow that data. And it's all very actionable. A big piece of this is that it's got to be evidence-based. It can't be anecdotal what you report back to the state. It has to be hard numbers. So we'll be able to do that through this plan, which is great, which is good. And this is obviously a need. And so I'm glad that our eyes are on it. We can report back about it.
Yeah. And there's electives at the high school, the math, is that stuff starting in FY25?
So the math elective for multilingual learners is now in the second year.
year.
Okay.
And it's at the middle school and at the high school, and it's
Okay.
the same teacher who does both. And we saw tremendous improvement in the students' MCAS scores in math as a result, which we're very proud of.
And so then the ELA elective will start next year.
It would start next year.
Great. It's great to identify this and come up with great strategies to close the gap. Questions? Yeah, looks great.
So I just need a formal approval
So we
for
need
the
a
plan.
motion.
I literally have to write
Motion.
in the date. I don't need a time, but I need the date of the school committee approval.
Okay. So if people are comfortable with me making a motion, or does someone want to make a motion? Okay. I move to approve the Student Opportunity Act plan submission as presented on March 21st, 2024. Okay, so motion by Kate, second by Jenny. Further discussion?
Yeah.
All in favor? All right, 6-0. Approved. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excited to hear back on the progress.
Right. Thank you, Tracy. Can you hit the projector? I think we're done with that.
Okay. All right, so we are up to discussion and appointment of the Whittier Tech School Committee member. I had just a little background on this. As everybody knows, resident Gary James has served in this capacity for a number of years, and he did submit a letter of interest to me several weeks ago, interested in continuing his role. And then we also received an application from resident Carol Sullivan. So we had two candidates. We interviewed them at our last school committee meeting. They both were in attendance. We had gathered questions from ourselves and from the other town boards. And I think the interview process went really smoothly. I think it was great. So I appreciate both candidates giving their time and their candid answers. And I think the questions were great, and we learned a lot. And I also want to report, I think this is public knowledge as well, Mr. James has since submitted a letter of resignation to Dr. Blake, effective at the end of his term, which is March 31st. So again, Mr. James has withdrawn his name from consideration, so we are down to one candidate. But I was curious on people's thoughts on Carol Sullivan as a candidate for the Whittier Tech School Committee position, and I'm happy to open it to the floor on people's thoughts on her interview and qualifications.
She's got great energy and she's got a great love of vocational schools. And, I feel like she's going to give a great perspective of Ipswich's play in Whittier. So I thought she was a great candidate.
Want to go?
Excuse me. She also had good ideas of communication and integrating some of the Whittier students and making them visible in Ipswich and what exactly their talents are, and kind of integrating them into the community so that the community sees our Whittier students doing what they do.
I think coming from her previous experience with Essex, she might provide a lot of valuable insight into sort of the challenges that Whittier clearly is going to be facing in the coming years. Capital campaign perspective or whatever they're actually going to do. I don't think they've decided yet, but so I think she'll be a great voice on that.
I also appreciated her thoughts on how she would move forward in that vein, working with the town, with the school committee, and thinking about what that would look like going forward. So I appreciate her bringing those recommendations as part of the discussion.
Yeah.
I agree with everything that's been said. I think she interviewed so well. Had a lot of, it was really refreshing to hear what she said. And I just think what I got from her, she seemed very proactive, which is something that will be very, very valuable.
Yeah, I agree with most of what's been said. She had a ton of energy, a lot of experience with vocational at vocational technical schools, mostly with Essex Tech, and she also had a pretty strong background in like political activism. She sounded like she spent a lot of time working on the building of this school and trying to get that passed. So she felt comfortable. She said she was comfortable talking in front of boards, and I should be making presentations to the finance committee and town meeting. And so she really, to me, showed an initiative to want to have the Whittier Tech position have a real visible role to the town. And we didn't really ask, will you make me, will you present to the FinCom? She just volunteered that information. And to me, it seemed like, I don't know, just a lot of the things she said, she had listened to the FinCom meetings and our budget presentations. She's been listening to the Whittier Tech School Committee meetings on Zoom. So, I mean, that shows me that she's really doing some homework. And we did talk a little bit about, she said she thinks we need to develop a task force to go to the state and get the document changed. And, whether that would be the school committee or another committee, she clearly expressed the relationship between the town and Whittier needs to get better. I thought she had some good ideas about how to do that. And she didn't seem happy with the current, what's it called? Contract, regional agreement. Yeah, she feels that needs to change. So I thought she was great. And I would strongly support her appointment.
I make a motion?
You may.
Proactive here. I wrote it down, so hopefully I got it right. I move to appoint Carol Sullivan to the Whittier Tech School Committee as of April 1st, 2024 for a 3-year term.
Second.
All right. Motion by Jenny, second by Jen. Do we have any further discussion on this candidate? All in favor? All right. Thank you. 6-0. So I will notify Ms. Sullivan tomorrow.
You can notify Ms. Sullivan and I'll let the
Whittier superintendent.
Whittier superintendent.
Okay.
I'd ask that
We
we
have a
add,
meeting with her tomorrow anyway.
I'd ask that we have time in an April school committee meeting, maybe to invite Ms. Sullivan, but also to talk about routines for providing updates to the school committee, but also for us to share just to how to partner with her. One, what should that look like, but also talk a little bit about transition.
Should we decide that before we bring her in as this is what we are our expectations? Why don't we have this scheduled and then bring her in to tell her, or
we
could.
I mean, I'm thinking it's deep in their budget season. They have a meeting. They had a meeting last week. They meet monthly. The full committee meets monthly. So her first Whittier Tech School Committee meeting would be April 10th or 13th.
Okay.
Which is actually when they hear their budget presentation. So I'm interested in hearing back from her after their budget
yeah.
presentation.
So that's a good point. So maybe that's the first one I think, and whether it's the same or at a later time, Jenny, maybe to your suggestion, I think initially it's a discussion with all of us. I don't think we're going to get it exactly right the first time. So let's have the discussion, see what it looks like. They're heading into the summer as well. And then check and
Another
adjust
thing
in the fall on how that's going.
Think about is it's not just us. It's the
yes.
select board and the finance committee.
That was
So
my
I want to
intention,
have them
broadly.
involved in
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah. That's a
conversation
good point.
about what the relationship's going to look like, because there's been some discussion, does the Whittier Tech rep, we appoint them, but that doesn't necessarily mean they report back to us. It might be more appropriate to report back to the select board
That's a good point.
or a tri board, et
Just say
cetera. So
tri
I don't
board.
think we're going to be, I don't think we should, I think we need to collectively with that wider group discuss that relationship. And I don't
Maybe I'll-
think,
I was going to alter my suggestion. Maybe, so yes, let's definitely have her in April for the budget. Maybe I would ask that in an upcoming chair call for the tri-board, discuss it, figure out what works best, whether we need to discuss it across the boards. We could talk about it first, bring some recommendations to them, but
yeah.
let's at least get it going is more my intention rather than specifically to say, here's what it should look like.
So I will also contact the chairs of the other boards to make them aware of the new appointment. Sorry. Official, my gavel. Okay, great. Thank you. Congratulations to Carol if she's listening. Okay, I gotta find my agenda. Okay, so we are moving on to discussion and authorization to submit statements of interest to the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
Yeah. Super excited where we are. As a quick reminder for what the schedule looked like, the last two big items for us were collecting feedback from the elementary school principals. Amy Sullivan, Peter Holtz did a wonderful job. A key piece of this is it's not just the buildings, but it's the impact on the students, the teachers, and their learning plans. And so they did a really wonderful job articulating how they're impacted, but also what's getting in their way and what they're prevented from doing. I think that really helps us illustrate and make the case. The other item was we presented at the select board on Monday and got their approval. As a reminder, we need to authorize Dr. Blake to submit, and so that requires approval from the select board as well as from the school committee. Our intention tonight is to vote, and there will be two separate motions, one for Winthrop, one for Doyon. We'll vote on it this evening, and then really the final step, it's due April 12th, but we are well prepared is really to take the SOI and actually enter it directly or submit it directly with the MSBA. Then we are officially on our way.
The vote tonight is not on the content of the SOI, it's on the voting to authorize
the
superintendent to submit.
Yep. In your folder, they're rather lengthy, so I'll point to it and then I will read through them. 8G, there's the MSBA vote language. You'll see a long paragraph for each of them. In summary, specifically what it points to is we authorize the superintendent to submit. There's one for each school. And the only specificity in there is that it highlights that we are submitting for priority number 2, the elimination of severe overcrowding. Priority 5, replacement, renovation, modernization of school facilities. And then 7, placement or addition of obsolete buildings. And we had discussed those are the ones that we're specifically articulating where the biggest need is for each of the schools.
So I'm still under the impression that on our agenda, there's a discussion on this that I had asked for at the last school committee meeting. So I think we should discuss more before we go through a voting of authorization.
What would you like to discuss?
Well, last time we had questions and people felt differently about prioritization. And I asked for that to be put on this meeting's agenda, and it wasn't. And I feel like there's still discussion to be had before we authorize it to be sent out, because we had questions and differences of opinion last time. And we don't have a full body here tonight with Jeff out of town. So I'd like to continue a discussion on the different thoughts of prioritization. I had concerns last time about redoing the same thing over again, and history repeating itself, that I don't want to see happen. And I'd like to just continue that discussion.
So to me, they're two different issues. So the priority school discussion is the content of the SOI. And so the vote, if we want to discuss that, that is different than the vote, which is the vote to authorize. So I don't want to conflate those things, because I don't want to send the message that we're voting on the content of the SOIs tonight, or at all, really, because we don't have to vote on the content of the SOIs. We have to vote on whether or not to submit them. So that's the agenda item before us. And if the committee would like to continue to discuss priority, we can have that discussion. But I still think it's really important for us to take a vote to authorize submission of the SOIs.
I think it's, oh, sorry. We
No.
finished? Okay. I know we all want to certainly submit an SOI. It's I feel conflicted with the priority of Winthrop, and ultimately, Brian, it's your call. So I'm thinking maybe it's helpful to get the different viewpoints for you to make that overall decision, because I definitely am for submitting an SOI, but I feel pretty strongly that it should be Doyon as the priority. Both schools are way over needing something. But I feel that it would keep the options open for two schools and one school. And have we ever prioritized Doyon? That's something new to try. It would be 1 year to no one wants to waste a year, but it's been taking so long already, and this is for a huge period in the future. So if we took 1 year and tried it with Doyon and see how we did. I know there's certainly been people in the emails coming in, and I know that doesn't mean the whole town agrees with the articles, but I think it's worth putting Doyon first, and for this time, it's also in need, and I think it keeps the options open more so. So that's,
If possible,
Based on-
just one thing. I would like to ask, is anyone opposed to voting on authorizing submission the SOIs this evening? Because I would like to get that, because that's the agenda item that we have on the table.
I think, can we, maybe to assuage some people in the room, and maybe even some people who aren't in the room, can we agree to have that discussion even if we vote on tonight on prioritization? Or does voting on it tonight preclude that discussion? I guess that's maybe a concern that some may
I don't
have.
think it precludes.
doesn't preclude it.
preclude.
So I
They're
would be comfortable
different-
with voting
they're
tonight as
different
long as
issues.
that conversation can still happen.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it says as written. So if we're approving the SOI, it doesn't say as written.
No.
So,
I mean, can you verify that?
I'm looking at it right now, yeah.
Oh, No, I don't have it in front of me. Yes, I do.
Keep going, Jen. I'm just confirming that that is,
So that would be, it doesn't have the words as written in the motion
doesn't?
that we're
Okay.
voting on. Nope.
that's right.
So if we were to vote for Dr. Blake to submit this SOI,
Two SOIs.
two SOI, sorry, yes, two.
Two votes, but yeah.
Two votes. How would we go about, ultimately, it's Dr. Blake's, even though he's passed it to us, whoever was here before, tasked us with the preparing, ultimately, he does have to, sign off on it. Do we have any say in that at all? So,
The motion is prescribed to us specifically from the MSBA. They give us the template of exactly what that motion needs to look like.
Yeah.
And so that's where it outlines. We specify what school and the address.
meaning school committee?
In the motion, we need to specifically state the school, the priorities that we're selecting. So in this case, 2, 5, and 7, and that's it. And the rest of the language is dictated to us by the MSBA. It's the same as what's presented to the select board and as presented to us, or the same motion that the select board makes, we make as well.
And that's not priority school.
Right.
That's
No,
a
that's
different issue.
priorities
That's
of those choices.
That's authorization
Right,
to submit.
Right.
Is what you're
Yeah,
talking
it
about.
specifies
Yep.
when they use priority in two different ways, certainly confusing. The priorities I'm referring to is what are the 3 specific needs that we are citing.
Right.
Yeah. So I think what you're getting at, Jenny, is for us to direct Dr. Blake to do something operational is creep of scope for us.
What?
Creep of scope. It's beyond our scope. It's an operational
Sure. Right.
procedure.
It's making our arguments, but our suggestions is appropriate. Obviously it's a big decision. So,
It's operational decision.
So I would
though.
like to bring it, I'd like to bring it back.
Decision for him.
I would like to bring it back to the vote. Is anyone opposed to voting on submission, authorizing Dr. Blake to submit the SOIs tonight?
I would like to have more conversation with clarity on prioritization of school and clarity from the MSBA. I know, Brian, you reached out to other superintendents who said it's based on need. I have a different opinion after looking at other SOIs about what was included and how schools get accepted, and that we could have a stronger vote if we have clarity and more discussion at our next school committee meeting on April 4th.
And that might change your decision to vote
To submit,
authorize an SOI. 'Cause that's what I'm trying, I'm not talking about priority school right now. I'm talking about voting to authorize submission. And I'm not opposed to talking about priority, but I want to address the agenda item that's on the agenda, which is vote to submit. And I'm trying to ask the question, are we comfortable doing that tonight? And I'm not sure what your answer is on that. No, I'm sorry, it's no public comments. That happened earlier tonight.
So I would not be comfortable voting for authorization until I get confirmation that it will be a discussion at our next school committee meeting on clarification of priority SOI, more discussion on priority school SOI, and clarity from the MSBA on not just need, but direction.
We can ask, but I don't think MSBA will give us the direction, but we can ask. And I'm not opposed to having a brief discussion at our next meeting, but I want to make it clear we're not voting on priority because that is out of our scope. We haven't voted on any other content in the SOI. We didn't vote on priority 5. We didn't vote on any language in the SOI. So I'm open to having a discussion on it, but It's Dr. Blake's decision to make. It's 100% operations. And I'm happy to have a discussion
feel
at
better.
next meeting. No, go ahead.
Getting more clarification also on I know it's so hard. It's so hard and it's confusing, and it seems, I'm sure, very clear for some of us. But I think waiting to learn more about the process, I guess, like, can somebody, clearly the school committee is providing this document to Dr. Blake to approve or to have his final stamp on it and to his document. But somehow the decision was made to put on this document to prioritize Winthrop, even though it's his decision. How is that decided that it would be Winthrop in the document we're going to provide him?
It's
School
his
facilities.
document.
It's in the
Right,
school
it's his
facilities.
document.
You already made the decision that it's going to be,
Based on the facilities that we currently have.
yeah.
And based on my conversations with the facilities director and the assistant facilities director around which building is in worse shape, which is the priority need, the biggest need between the two, it's the Winthrop School. And so that's how I came to that decision.
Yeah.
If we were to have a catastrophic event at Winthrop, we have to respond to it. And if I, to ignore the advice of the facilities director and assistant facilities director saying that's the worst building,
Right.
I think is foolish to be, to try to manipulate the MSBA process in some way.
I'm not trying to manipulate the MSBA process. I am recalling, a battle that this town went through that said, nope, you can't have a small school at Winthrop. We need a combined school. Nope, you can't have a combined school at Winthrop. We don't want it there. And that's what the priority of Winthrop would allow. And the town has already said no to that prior to your coming to town, Dr. Blake. And then the conversation, I was on an MSBA phone call probably over a year ago. And they went through the process, but again, school committee members on a phone call listening to the process. And then when they called us this past fall, and literally said, are you crazy? Are you hopeful? Are you optimistic? What's different? We're not doing anything different with this prioritization.
I categorically disagree with that. We have done a lot of things different between last time. I don't think they mean what's different on your SOI. I don't think there's any reason to think our SOI last year was insufficient or we need to handle something different. We didn't get accepted. That happens to 70 to 80% of the SOIs that get submitted. It often takes 2 to 3 years to get in. And we've done listening sessions. We've done a ballot vote question. We've done a ton of things different. So my interpretation of that call was not what's different in your SOI, but what's different in your town. What have you done to move the needle forward on a project? And I think we've done a lot.
But I agree with you.
We've eliminated sites.
Right. And part of
perhaps
what we
opened
found
others.
out at those listening sessions and ballot vote was that there's a majority of people who think that a consolidated school should be at Doyon. So why wouldn't we choose that? That's productive. That's a change.
I think we're in your comment there, conflating the difference of the opinion of the town of where might we build future schools
Mhm.
versus what we're discussing here, which is authorization to submit to get MSBA funding. Those are two different things. That's where I feel like we're mixing a couple different conversations
We're
tonight.
putting the
I
cart
don't mind each
before the
individual
horse.
conversation, but they're independent.
So to move this is, how do we start that? Start with the having convened?
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
I can.
didn't understand the question.
Yeah,
but now I do.
I will, so I'll take them one school at a time.
So I would like to make a motion that at our next school committee meeting, we have a discussion on prioritization and the process of superintendent and school committee from the MSBA. We need specific
To
guidance about prioritization and school committee input.
To what end?
Second.
So I understand the clarity for the MSBA. Totally get that as a complex document. But to what end? What would be the outcome of that conversation? That's what
Because-
I'm not clear on, sorry.
Because I don't know that we have clarity. We can call it the superintendent's document, but every school committee member has it in here in its most recent draft. And if we weren't involved in content, why do we even need to see those? And
We don't. We didn't.
No.
Many
Select
districts, I don't
board.
think the school committee does.
I think that goes back to with the authorization, we're authorizing
did.
the superintendent to submit. Otherwise, the vote would be on approving the school committee document. I think that's again, the technical difference. So to your point of a future discussion, separate what would the potential planning strategy look like for our elementary schools versus submitting the document? What would a future conversation about submitting the document be?
the future conversation about what I just made a motion for and Jenny seconded was future conversation about prioritization with clarity from the MSBA on the process of a superintendent versus a school committee content at our next meeting on April 4th.
Okay.
And you asked to what end, Sasha? I want to have a strong application. They're beautiful. I want to have a strong application. Everybody on this committee desperately wants a new schools / acceptance into the process. I think I'm not alone in my feeling that Doyon should be prioritized. I think from public comment at our last meeting, Jeff, who's not here tonight, feels similarly. I think there's other people at the table that feel similarly, and we need to discuss. And I want crystal clear clarity that we as a school committee support the prioritization that right now Dr. Blake has chosen.
One last question, just maybe before the vote for clarity. So you're not opposed to approval to submit the SOIs. You want to discuss what's in the SOIs next time.
Yeah. She's a motion on the table to discuss prioritization and potentially reach out to the MSBA and have a discussion on the April 4th meeting. So there is a motion on the table and a second.
Okay.
There needs to be a vote on it.
And I had a
Motion and a second.
Do a friendly
So-
amendment.
So it's a matter of essentially asking if the school committee can force the superintendent to do something he doesn't believe is
Those are
accurate.
your words.
Well, yeah, that's
Those
not
are
the
my-
motion.
those are my
but that's
words.
your-
But
Yeah,
that's essentially what
but
the
that's not
ask
the
is.
motion that's on the table.
I have a clarifying
Motion to
question.
discuss.
Did you want to talk more about the vote that we're being asked to take on April 4th? Instead of voting tonight to submit it? Or do you want to wait until April 4th? Do we have that
I
discussion?
think we need to deal with the motion that's on the table right now, which is not about submission. It's about content. It's about the prioritization of the school. So if there's a motion on the table and a second, I think we can vote that.
And the
Everybody
motion was
understand the
made
motion
to
on the
have,
table?
just to ensure that on April 4th, we can have some clarity and conversation on prioritization. And the intent is to have strong unity going forward from the school committee on submitting an SOI.
We have a motion and a second. Take a vote. All in favor? We have a vote because we have a motion and a second on the table to have a discussion on April 4th. All in favor? Opposed? So it is 3-3 because we don't have.
Fails. No, it fails.
Motion fails because it's a tie.
Okay. Can you read the motion?
Yeah, so I'll read the motion that we have. I'll do Winthrop first. Resolved, having convened in an open meeting on March 21st, 2024, prior to the SOI submission closing date, the School Committee of Ipswich, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinance, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit the Massachusetts School Building Authority the Statement of Interest form dated April 2024 for the Winthrop School, located at 65 Central Street, which describes and explains the following deficiencies and the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Priority 2, elimination of severe overcrowding. Priority 5, replacement, renovation, and modernization of school facility systems such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating, and ventilation systems to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in a school facility. Priority 7, replacement of or addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements, and hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority is in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the Ipswich Public Schools to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
Second.
May I ask a clarifying question before we take a vote? Is is April 4th too late to take a vote on this, to get the paperwork done and submitted by April 12th? I feel like we have to take a vote tonight.
The intention of tonight's date was once the SOIs are done, now that we have all the feedback in it, it's that like final review, proofread, all those details, and then it takes time to submit. So I'll leave that to Dr.
I know you
Blake
have
in
to
terms of how much
upload it all
time.
into the,
So that gives me a week.
it gives you a week.
A week.
Well, not even. Well, yeah, five.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
oh,
I'm just asking if,
but right now, I mean, again, it's just, can he submit? We're authorizing him to submit when he has a document that he's ready to submit.
yeah, I want to I'm cautious of MSBA. I'm cautious of not having I'm just cautious of MSBA seeing our discussions and our not having full school committee support for submitting an SOI.
I would hope we have full
I would
school
too.
committee support for submitting SOIs in our district where everybody knows we need them.
And again, I will stress that this is not a vote on the content of the SOIs. It's voting that we need to submit them. Further discussion on this vote on the table? Questions? This is for Winthrop.
I'd like to wait until the 4th.
I didn't hear what you said.
I'd like to wait until April 4th.
I know the timeline that you presented, I remember you saying that there was wiggle room or whatever, some time to do that. So if we could use that time, then we'd have a full, I know we don't need to have a full board, but we'd have a full board and
There's no wiggle room if we meet on April 4th. If we do not vote on April 4th, we will not submit these statements of interest, or we could have to call a special school committee meeting if for some reason there's a tornado on April 4th. and we
Dr.
can't meet.
Sorry.
The timing is tight, but perhaps doable.
And what would change for you between now and the 4th, Dr. Blake?
I think the only thing that would change my mind or put me in a position to approve a different priority school is the MSBA telling me that it doesn't have to be the building perhaps in the worst shape.
Based on your conversation, why we did not get in last time, we were told we didn't get in based on need, right? Because there were needier districts. So do we have any reason to believe that it is not based on need?
I have no reason to believe it's not based on need.
And to your point, if we know Winthrop is right on the edge, right? Would it not be reckless of us to not try to fix that first?
I believe so. That's my contention based on what conversations I've had with the facilities director and assistant facilities director.
And in reading, for those either in reading the documents and what you've heard from the facilities directors, do you disagree that Winthrop is in worse condition than Doyon?
No, I don't. My thought is, if it's not priority of need, maybe it's the priority of the overall plan of the community,
Sure.
which would create a expedited plan that would get the ball rolling. So as the first step on that, that would be the priority of what can be the first step. Both are needy schools.
So that makes sense.
So that's
What are you basing that on?
um,
In our conversations between votes, listening sessions, we've had pretty clear, well, not unanimous, pretty clear direction. But I feel like I'm hearing tonight, you've heard something different or you have a different opinion on where the consensus is in the town. What are you basing that on?
So my issue is that when we have spoken to the MSBA, they have repeated, what are your guiding principles? And I think we've tried in this town to have guiding principles. And some of my opinion is about living through the last project and watching citizens in this town saying, nope, not a combined school there. Nope, not a combined school there. Okay, we'll put a combined school here. And I don't want to go through it again.
What is it in the SOI or in the motion that I've made would direct us to build a certain configuration in a certain location?
I think we didn't have questions answered last time about, meaning last school committee meeting, about is it absolute need, and the MSBA, as I brought up last time, like we talked about the Amherst project, and they switched their prioritization and got accepted again. I think I have questions about whether or not it's an overall plan that they want to see.
Yep.
And after researching and looking at the other SOIs,
Sure.
so I want to have clarity on, so that we can go forward confidently and unanimously in support of what we put forward.
Are you suggesting we specify a plan and how we would move forward in the SOI?
No.
Then I go
I
back to
don't wanna
understanding what's the
repeat the
question or
past.
what's the further discussion about what we would have if we don't question that Winthrop is in worse condition, and we're not intending in the SOI to communicate, here's our plan for location or configuration. What else specifically do you want to resolve with this group before we submit?
I want to know from the MSBA, is it only need? Is it?
If they were to
an
say it's,
urgency.
if they were to say
very
it's
clear
not
on their
need,
website,
and it's based on
need and
whatever
urgency.
criteria we determine, I don't believe it to be the case, but if they were to say it's completely up to us, how would you proceed in that situation? And what would you put different in the SOIs?
I would feel more comfortable supporting Winthrop as a priority if they said it's only need.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've
Dr.
heard
Blake,
them say that.
Do you have any input on that with your conversations with other districts?
So the other superintendents that I've spoken with have indicated that the SOIs are based on the needs of the building, and prioritizing which one is, if you only got to build one building, which one would it be? That's going to be Winthrop. That's the one that needs to be replaced first, or more.
With all due respect, though, it's nice that the other superintendents said that, but I'd like to hear that from the MSBA. If we're going to check the box on one of them to consolidate, which means when it comes down to that, making that decision, they have 2 SOIs on the table. They're looking at 2 needy schools. I would like to hear from the MSBA, does it have to do with need and a plan? Or need and community support?
Need an urgency. It's all over their website. It's what they've told us on phone conversations before. That's what they look at.
My
They say,
concern
and they
is,
specifically said with no prejudice, like, it's not, we don't look at what happened last time. It's a fresh set of eyes every year comparing the applications they have in front of us based on need and urgency. That's what I have heard them say. They do not want to get involved in town politics and telling us what to do. They want to help towns fix their schools based on.
But we want to demonstrate our greatest need.
even if you put that aside, regardless of what that answer is, and all of this is still very speculative, it's an operational decision.
Mhm.
It is way out of our scope to direct the superintendent to do any of what you're suggesting.
Right.
And that's concerning because of what that bleeds into in a host of other areas.
Right. I don't see, like I said, I would absolutely not tell Dr. Blake what to do. It's just getting clarification and suggesting, making our thoughts known and why. But certainly, it's your document and ultimately your call. Is it possible for us to, because then Dr. Blake can put that final mark on by selecting for him to then go back into our draft and put the priority himself? And is there a way in our draft to remove the priority checkbox? Not to remove it from the form, but to just take off what we have in our draft as which one's going to be the priority. And then when we pass it on to Dr. Blake, he can then do that. I know that might seem.
But it is his document. This is a document that has been a collaboration of our facility subcommittee so again, it's not us. We've had that discussion.
Right.
Like you said, you've talked to Chris Reyes. So I think I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But it goes back to the fact that in general, obviously it's not just a courtesy. It's nice. I think we all need to see this information, but like, that's not what we're voting on. We're voting on, like, we could never see it, or we could vote on it and he could change it.
Right.
Technically, I don't think he will, but I'm not talking about priority. I'm talking about anything.
Yeah,
He could
yeah.
change a whole paragraph. We're just voting for him.
Right.
To submit
Like
it.
the select board voted to
Right.
submit it. And we can give our,
So it is a collaboration, and I'm on the facilities working group. I'm the minority on that group in thinking of what the prioritization is. But I don't, or what it should be, but I don't understand the harm in waiting until April 4th. These are very, detailed drafts close to the finish line. I don't see the harm in waiting until April 4th to come together as a committee with an absolute answer as to prioritization.
But who's giving MSBA's? You want MSBA to give us an answer. Okay. And what if we don't get an answer from them, which I suspect we won't? What if we don't get an answer from them? What if they say, we accept SOIs based on need and urgency, and the priority school is up to the community, which I'm 99% sure is what they'll say. Then how do we proceed without clarity? We can try for clarity, because we're not going to reach consensus in 2 weeks. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they will give us clarity. I mean, my biggest concern is we've heard from our superintendent and our school facilities directors, who are the professionals that we've hired, who do operations, know our buildings the best, and they have both told us that Winthrop is in worse shape and is more likely to fail. And when I think about why my role here and why I got elected was to represent and do what's in the best interest of all students. So if I'm hearing from our professionals that are tasked with the operations of our buildings and our district, telling us which building is most likely to fail, how can we ethically entertain a solution that doesn't fix that? And I know ultimately we would fix it, but I don't understand how we can entertain even a short-term solution that benefits Doyon students only and keeps, or any solution that keeps half of our elementary population in a failing building for an unspecified amount of time, knowing what we know. It seems out of our lane, and it seems inappropriate for us to make that call. And to me, it doesn't
My only other,
impact the outcome, nor should we be trying to impact the outcome right now. We're trying to get in. That's it. We desperately need to get in. I think the whole town agrees. And I think that's why a lot of people in town aren't talking about it, because they're tired of talking about it. They just want it to get done.
yeah, my only other suggestion is I'd love to have the conversation around options for location configuration. Let's 100% do that, but let's do that in our April 4th meeting. Let's put that on the agenda, but let's still proceed and at least vote to authorize so we can move forward with the MSBA submission and continue those. We can do that in parallel. We can begin it, shoot the next meeting. We actively work across the community, the teachers, identify what our potential options are. So by the time we hear back from the MSBA in December, we're in a wonderful position where we've built consensus. We have good options to recommend, but let's move forward with that. I want to have that conversation. I just think we're mixing a little bit of the two, and I don't want one to stall the other. I just want to move forward with both of them. What if we proceed that way?
But this committee tonight just said, no, I don't want to talk about prioritization next week, which I think is, it's not consensus building. I don't think, we had unanswered questions last week about the process and from the MSBA. I don't like the suggestion. We were all elected to do the best by our students and all the students. And I too was elected and feel passionately about creating the best educational environment for all the students. I don't want to repeat the past and go down the same road of prioritizing a school that sent us into a battle. And we have done work to figure out what the community wants. And if it is a combined school, I don't think it's going to be at Winthrop. And I think we should go down the road of the work we've done in the community and give the town options to support more options to support a better school environment for all the children. But I don't like the insinuation that we all weren't elected. We could just have different opinions about the solution of what that means. But I really feel strongly that we're going down a road again of prioritizing a school that the citizens of Ipswich didn't want a small school at Winthrop. It's not, they didn't want a combined school at Winthrop. And then we're going to prioritize Winthrop, only to move it over to Doyon. And why wouldn't we just prioritize Doyon and stop the battle?
Because it's based on need.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Those are different things. Selecting the priority doesn't dictate or send us down any path. We need to develop a strategy and specific plans for whatever the location and configuration are.
Right. But Sasha, this committee doesn't even want to talk about that.
No,
I
that's
don't
what
want
we've
to talk
been,
about priority. I'm happy to talk about configurations and
Yeah,
solutions and decisions. I don't want to talk about priority because I don't think it's in our lane.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think it's based on my discussions with the MSBA and all my research. It's based on need and urgency. And in my opinion, we've heard from the officials, the professionals, that that's our need and urgency. But obviously, at some point, we are going to need to talk about a solution, and
So if you're,
I'm happy to talk about those too.
if the concern is truly we're misunderstanding the intention of the questions in the SOI and what's intended to be submitted, then fine. You can rescind, figure out the technicalities, I'll pull back on my motion. That's very different than talking about how we proceed with what the school configuration location is. And I keep hearing that two things getting mixed. Those are not the same conversations. I want to have both, but they're not the same thing. If you're worried about the technicalities of us misunderstanding what's in there, I think that's okay. And sure, let's get clarification, come back next week. That's great. But that's different than us dictating what's in the SOI.
Right.
I want to be careful because
Right,
there's a very specific and hard line there.
right.
Well, I don't feel like we're dictating. I feel like I want clarity on prioritization.
Okay.
And I think
So let
we
me
would
ask,
be better served as a committee to submit or vote for authorization after we have clarity on that from the MSBA. If
Okay.
you tell me if they come back absolutely 100%, it's based on need, I'm going to feel differently
Okay.
and stronger.
okay. So let me, I just want to ask the technical question. There's a motion, there's a second. Procedurally, what do we do to withdraw that instead of going to vote? Someone help me with that.
Have to withdraw the second
but-
and
If,
the, the, go ahead.
No, you
I'm
say
just
it.
gonna, no, I'm,
Say it.
no, it's just, I'm gonna put us in an awkward position. I'm not gonna say it.
I don't know. You could have asked me in January. I would have voted for this. We're authorizing Dr. Blake to submit something. That's where I'm at.
This is the biggest school committee goal of the year, is to submit SOIs.
Correct.
This is something we committed
And
to doing.
at this point, I don't believe that there is anything that anybody will tell anybody sitting at this table that's going to change anybody's minds.
Including you, who is
Obviously, including
operationally
me.
in charge.
Right,
Right.
right.
So, right, again, would not tell you what to do on this. But if we are able to talk about, if we do vote for this tonight to move forward, to have him submit something, there is still time to have a discussion about priority, and you may not change your mind. But I think it would be fair for us to talk about why, or if whoever wants to talk about why they think the other way. So if that could be, I know Jen did a motion on being able to talk about that at the next meeting, but it didn't go through. Is that?
Can I ask a
Yeah,
question of you?
yeah.
Do you mean priority in the sense of the SOI, or like future plan, like continuing the conversation we started, 6
Right.
weeks ago or whatever? Like,
Right.
what are some ideas? How do we move our town forward? Is that the conversation you're looking for?
No, just like if we get clarification about what priority means, does it mean best for the community, school community as a whole, or if it's, that, but also just to talk about the different roads that I know technically from MSBA's perspective, voting one over the other doesn't take anything off the table. But given the politics of the town, one, we could potentially go down. I know things have been different, but choosing Winthrop again would just have nothing get done. Like what happened prior, like the Doyen didn't get done, or the Winthrop didn't get done. So just to talk about that on what we think the different direction would have a better chance of doing what we think it would take things off the table.
So you-
Ultimately, it's his decision, but
I think I'm hearing like two things again, but like I'm hearing you want to talk about, again, general future planning, but for me, that's still separate from the priority.
But what is the harm in waiting until April 4th to have a strong consensus?
Not going to have a
We're
strong
not going to have a strong
There's
consensus.
nothing that's going to be said.
Going to be different. I mean, we can call the MSBA. We can do that. I think perhaps we should withdraw the motion.
Yeah, you need to withdraw your second and then I withdraw my motion, is that correct?
I withdraw my motion,
Second, or
my second.
I withdraw my motion,
Okay.
yeah, maybe.
There's no longer a vote on the table.
Yeah. I would also, before we discuss this any further, like to know what those that were involved last year, like they didn't understand from the prior year and in the months that we've spent on this, what else we need to know. This feels a little bit 23rd hour. It's frustrating for the months that we spend on this. I want to be a little more specific. I get clarification. I don't understand why we need clarification after 2 years of going through this.
So I've been talking about this for much longer than 2 years. And if it's only 2 years, my opinion hasn't changed. So this isn't my 23rd hour.
I'm not talking about
The 23rd hour of
I'm not talking
submitting
about
the
planning
SOIs.
and what might we do, configuration, location. I'm talking about clarification from the MSBA on what does priority
Asked
mean.
for it last week or 2 weeks ago. And I asked for it to be on the agenda tonight.
Okay.
And I don't think, confirming with other superintendents is clarity.
So
No, that's why I withdrew. So get clarity from the MSBA. Let's talk next school committee meeting of what we heard back from them, and then we can proceed with the conversation. I think that's totally fair. If we're unclear of the technical nature of the SOI, it's totally appropriate that we get clarification and then we proceed. I'm fine with that.
But we can get our clarification, but it's still Dr. Blake's
yes.
decision.
And we will take a vote on SOI submission next week, 2 weeks.
And I think for me, that aspect that it was Dr. Blake's call and Dr. Blake's call alone, that wasn't known by me until just before this meeting. So that was where I was unclear, right? I fully trust that it's his call.
right.
Right.
Me too.
I don't, I just found that out. So for me, a little bit of a whirlwind because last week or 2 weeks ago, we kind of had a little bit of an unsure moment there where we weren't quite sure whether or not it was what we submitted to him and then he just went forward with it or whether it's his call to do it. So I think it's not 23rd hour to some degree, yeah. But I think it was, the clarity over exactly who owns the document, who makes that call was made clear just before the meeting. And I'm okay with that, right? I just needed that clarity. And I wanted to have that discussion next week, not as a binding discussion, but just as people can be heard. And we can all felt like we were heard. But I'm okay. I mean, obviously it's too late now, but I mean, I'm okay moving forward with this. I just had a lot of questions about how this was supposed to play out. And we found out just before. You guys have been working on this for a lot longer. Maybe you knew that. And maybe that's on me. Maybe I should have asked more questions. But this is all new to me. But, I think that's all that I want out of this. I'm okay with Dr. Blake making this call, right? If that's the way it works, it's the way it works. That's fine. I just feel like for the sake of this committee to feel like they all were heard, I wanted to have that opportunity for people to have that conversation. That's all. But I'm okay, next meeting, moving forward with the submission. I will not be getting in the way of that at all. I'll be cheering it on.
Kind of related, but a little different. I just want to clarify some things for the record, if I may.
Yes.
Amherst has been brought up a lot, and I want to just say that it's not really fair to compare without getting all the details. Amherst Like we've talked about, they were going to consolidate. They had a failed project. They went back, changed their scope a little bit, but we're still consolidating. In the meantime, their town self-funded a $250,000 feasibility study on their other school, which was, from what I've read, basically the same. It said the schools were almost identical. One was 3 years older, and they both put priority one, which was that the schools impacted the health and safety of the students and staff. So it's just not really a fair comparison to make
And they
between.
put that on their second SOI?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they put the number one on their first, but yeah, on their second,
That's
they
a pretty heavy duty
Correct.
priority. You have to
Yeah.
provide all kinds of documenting.
Engineering
had it on
studies.
both of them. So again, that's just not really a fair comparison. Swampscott did submit the same priority both times after they had a failed consolidated project, went back, did another consolidated project that passed. Their second time that they got accepted, it was the same priority as their first. And for their minutes, it was because the superintendent said that I picked this one because we already know that that's the one that we know we can't renovate, basically saying because that's the one we know that is in the worst shape. So I think that's a
No,
probably a
can't
better compar-
renovate in worse shape are two different things.
They knew that they didn't have a lot to go off of there. 'Cause yeah, it's in worse shape because they can't renovate it. Also, to clarify, one other thing was when we looked at New Bedford and said, oh, they had one school that was accepted that was not the priority. So this is also a little confusing. New Bedford has like 12,000 students and 18 elementary schools. For districts like New Bedford, Springfield, Boston, Lawrence, the MSP is like made, typically they say, oh, you have one project going on at a time. Obviously, that wouldn't be fair to have the same rules for Little Ipswich and big cities like that. So they actually had a project, their priority project was accepted in 2020. They have subsequently been accepted for another project, which again is a kind of unwritten rule that applies to really large districts. So they did get accepted, but because they already have one that's in the pipeline, that one stays its priority until it's completed.
Because they do have a strict rule. A district can't, even a massive district can't have two priority SOIs in
Right.
the
I don't
pipeline at the
know.
same time.
Yeah.
So the second one couldn't be priority
Yeah.
until that first one.
I mean, and I don't know how that plays out, but that's why they were accepted. Again, I don't know if the process is different from there, but they were accepted. But again, you can't compare Ipswich to.
So that goes back to last week where we were saying there are situations where non-priority districts get chosen. But you're saying that was an unusual situation of a very large district that already had a priority school in the pipeline, so they couldn't
Right.
pick another. Got it. Okay. Moving on. Negotiations update. Our bargaining committee met with the Ipswich Educators Association on March 14th last week for our first meeting. I thought it went very well. It was very positive on both sides. They brought some common proposals to the table that would apply to all three bargaining units, which we discussed. And we were also able to schedule an additional 4 meetings between the two groups, which I thought was huge progress. It was nice we all sort of pulled out our phones and were able to schedule some more meetings, which I think will help keep things moving along really efficiently. So I was excited that we were able to, I was just hopeful to schedule 1 meeting, but we were able to schedule 4. So that's great. So we look forward to our next meeting with them on March 27th next week to continue the conversations, and I'm happy to have the process get started. So it's good.
Sorry.
Policy review update.
All right. We have 15. Okay. So starting with AC, just some general rewording. No content changes. Ooh, looks like Laura got in here, but
A lot of new content, but that's all.
I, th-
I mean, that's all from the MSBA.
yeah,
MSBA.
MASC. Sorry, did I say that wrong?
MSBA.
It looks, she might have, I'm not sure. I can see she was in here, so I don't know if that's why some of it looks like it's been changed, but yeah, there was like nothing material, but just some wording changes. Any questions? All right. Next we have ACAB. This one also had some rewording. We updated the appropriate personnel. And we also, so this policy suggests that there should be acknowledgement of this policy by parents and guardians. So Dr. Blake is working on a process for kind of a acknowledgement of receipt of the handbook that has those certain policies in it.
Similar to the high school acknowledgement of the handbook.
Yep.
All right, so AE had no changes. EA, minor wording and reformatting. EAA, no changes. I'm just rolling, so stop me if you have any questions. BB, minor rewording, and then we added, there was like a recommendation that we put a piece in from our town charter, so we put a little piece in there that says we have 7 members. And BBA, nothing major. There was a list of like personnel that's appointed by the school committee, and we just fixed that because some of them didn't apply. And BBAA. Minor rewording and reformatting. Same with BBBA, BBBB. Same with BBBC. Same with BBBE.
And all of these are, the language comes from the MAS.
Correct, yes. And same with BCA. BDA, that one we have a little discussion planned on there. So BDA, what's in there right now is what was per the MASC. Dr. Blake reached out to legal because if you see here, it says like if members step off, then what happens, who's appointed, and it says it should go to the most senior, but we said, well, in our case, there's going to be a tie if that ever happens.
Right. In some years, that'll be 3 people.
Correct, yeah. So legal gave a recommendation that I put in the comments, which basically says the same thing, but that a majority vote shall take place to determine which member shall serve as the chair pro tem. So if you want, let me see, I will drop that in the document, and if it looks okay, then we can just go with that. Oh, I wasn't on track changes, but can you, if you're looking at it, you can see it now. It's this highlighted one. So, we good with that? All right, we'll take this guy out.
That's fast.
All right. Two other things here. I'll start with the easier one. Well, actually, both are a little tricky. There was a note that said you could include wording about who presides during the election of the chair.
Which one are we in?
We're still in BDA.
Okay, sorry about that.
And how to handle resignations or removal of school committee officers. So not school committee members, but like if in this scenario, Kate and Jeff both said, hey, next meeting, we're both stepping down. What do we do? So do we want to put anything in here? I mean, I think that's a case where it would go up for vote, but who would preside?
I mean, isn't it the chair pro tem would? Isn't that in the event that the chair and vice chair are no longer members of the school committee, the senior acts, isn't that covered in that second
Yeah,
paragraph?
I guess it's no, you know what? We could add no longer members of the school committee or step down.
That's synonymous? Or no?
No, because you could say, I'm going to stay a member of the school committee, but I'm stepping down
Step down from the chair,
from the chair.
not like step off.
Mhm.
Right.
It's that chair.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
I'm getting tired.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
thinking the
it's
same
late.
thing.
Okay, that makes
This is
sense.
school committee.
I mean, has that ever happened?
Step
Did-
down from office.
I mean, I'm not opposed to putting something in, but
Policy is for there in case it does happen, so.
can we,
That makes sense, because procedurally it's the same, but it covers both conditions.
are you
Yeah,
adding something to the second paragraph?
I did, but now that I'm reading it, it does read like, so if let's say the chair stepped down, the way this reads now is that the next senior would fill that role.
No,
Not
or
the-
both step down from office simultaneously. Which would,
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like an extenuating
That's what you're
circumstance.
saying.
but-
Yeah, so maybe you
Instead
need a
of
different
advancing
paragraph that
the-
says,
yeah.
without that second part.
Okay. So wait, let me take this out.
No, it says and. So if the event the chair and vice chair step down from office. To me, it
Okay.
reads okay.
Okay.
It doesn't say chair or, if it said
I
chair
see.
or vice chair, but if it
Yeah.
says chair and vice chair are no longer members, or I guess you could just be redundant and say, or both step down from office.
Okay. And
To avoid that situation.
for sure, yeah.
I think it's going to happen.
We also tried to avoid, I imagine, removing people from office. So again, the note said that we could have wording in here. It didn't have anything suggested. I honestly didn't look to see if anybody else had anything. I'm hoping it's a low frequency. I don't know if it's good to have something in there to protect us, but I don't feel strongly about it either.
They didn't give guidance on what to do for removal of school committee members from office? Is
Mm-mm.
there guidance?
Did you get any?
No.
There's nothing in the ethics oath we take or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the place that we could say, if the chair does this, then we'll do that. But I mean, I would imagine be pretty specific to a circumstance if that ever had to happen.
I think we would need to either not add it or table it and do some research, because I'm
Yeah.
not comfortable just coming up with random
Right.
language without. We're in BDA still. And so we're talking about the longer note from Diana. About what to do for removal of school committee officers, so.
I think I'm okay not
Not
having it,
language.
unless that seems super risky. What do you think, Matt?
Rub together the last two brain cells I have. I think it feels a little risky, but
Have nothing?
Either of you could went through it recently with me, but does anyone remember something about this in the charting the course? There's something, again, it's late. There's something that is triggering me, like that there is something in that situation. So maybe to Kate's point, leave BDA as it is now, research that, and we can come back and either revise BDA or whether that's something separate.
Okay.
I remember
Yeah,
there being
given
something
the
about
hour,
that.
I say we just table this one.
Or do you want to
We could approve it as it
approve
is
it
and
as
then
is and
amend
then
Okay.
we can just like,
Mhm.
Yeah, that's fine.
it back to it.
Okay.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
I'd
it
be
would be
okay with
adding
that.
information, it would be adding stuff.
All right. And then the other conversation that review of this one sparked again was something we had talked about last year. Is this committee, there had been some general, seemed like there was some interest in investigating if going to have to be like town charter or something, but or bylaws. But if the election happens in May, having the current school committee carry out the term till June 30th and having whoever's elected in May start July 1st. You know. Yeah.
That's a lot of
How do we
stuff.
do that? It would certainly clean up a few things, but are there
Lot.
any things that it would muddy?
So
I mean,
yeah,
legally, it might muddy
think, yeah,
stuff.
I think there's,
Certain things
I,
you should have.
Whittier one operates
Yeah.
that way, right? It's on a termed, but not.
it's, well, because their whole process is different than ours. What I, wait, but what I worry about is, we run into this every year. We're going to run into it now again this year, where we essentially have to do my evaluation in the next month before the board changes, whereas in,
May 21st is the election. We have
okay,
we have
yeah, okay.
almost. But yes, it's.
But you're going to have a changeover, and then if the board, you'll have open seats on committees, you'll have end of year events. I think, for me, the end of year events are an issue. If the chair changes, then who's responsible for speaking at graduation? Who's responsible,
The chair doesn't change.
signing
I mean, we're trying to get back to
diplomas,
changing
doing
the
all
chair
those
in
things?
July.
Right. So what you're saying
Mhm.
supports
Yeah.
potentially.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So for next steps, I mean, again, we can approve this, but can it be an ongoing discussion? And I don't know where that starts. If that's something you bring up to the other boards, town council, like just to see, is it possible or are there, to your point,
like
things
no
that we're not
pitfalls.
thinking about?
Yeah, it may- yeah. And it may be a town charter issue that, after the election is when people take office.
Right.
They can be seated, or they have to be seated within so many days according to the charter, I believe.
But could we change that? And then
And
it's
we-
like, is there,
right.
is there a good reason to change it? Are there any drawbacks? And then if we do want to change it, how do we change it? I think we'd have
But
to.
do you have any authority between the election and June 30th on voting on stuff, or are you just like a lame duck
Yeah.
hanging out, going to graduation?
Well, I think it, again.
I was wondering. I
It would
don't
have to
know.
be like
That's the
worded.
question.
Right,
It would be I think it would
Would
just
we
have to be a,
vote on-
right. You would have to
Bylaw
change
thing.
you would have to change the charter to do that, so that the election could be held and then would remain in office until X date.
yeah.
It sounds like there's enough general agreement on at least investigate that option, so we understand what's the pros, cons, and even, is it even feasible to move
State and
forward that
federal
way?
elections.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Tough for-
I mean, I'm a
So-
little concerned about getting it in place in the next.
No, I think
next
this
year.
is a
Okay, 'cause
longer
I don't-
term.
I just.
It's not going to be this
For a
time.
little-
No.
It's
No.
not rising on
think
my
it would
list
have
of
to-
Things.
Yeah. We'd have to go through all the
to do.
steps.
But yeah, it's a good.
So what does that next step look like? Is that, who takes it? Is that a you
Um,
thing? Is that a we thing?
I know I talked to Nick about it at some point, our attorney, and took some notes because it was brought up last year. So I'd have to look back at those notes, and he gave us some. I think he was the one that had maybe suggested that some districts do it this way, that you get elected but you don't take office until
Mhm.
July 1st. But in terms of how to make that happen, I don't know. But I could add it to my long list of things to look into.
Okay.
I can't promise it's going to be in the next month, but I will.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Once everything starts to wind down here, something to look into. All right. But it's good to know that, based on tonight's conversation, again, people are interested in pursuing that conversation. All right. So I think we're all cleaned up there. Okay, next one is ACR. This is a new policy from the MASC. And we just updated, there's like some contact information that they want in there. So we put that in. And it was in line with the current practice for Dr. Blake. And next, GBEE is also a new one. And this one, they had like a whole batch of policies that were about technology and stuff. And this, so they talked about social media pages. This one specifically about like social media pages are being run by staff that are representing the school. And also we checked to make sure there was like a good policy in place, because this talks about how staff, coaches, anybody shouldn't be like directly messaging students. And again, we believe that to be the case, but Dr. Blake reconfirmed the practice, and everything is right and matches the policy.
Enforce the policy.
Yes.
Move to support policies in the folder as edited from sections A, B, and G.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? That was motion by me, second by Sasha. It's on recording. Okay. We're only an hour and 10 minutes behind schedule. Superintendent's administrative report.
Read it. Last week, I attended the YMCA Community Partnership meeting that was hosted by the Ascension Church. After introductions, it was a good-sized crowd. There had to be, 40 or 50 people there, I think. We broke up into groups to discuss a variety of topics. The group that I was in, we focused on the current needs of our youth in town. There was some consensus around the need for more programming for our middle school age students. We've got a lot of kids that take a van over to the Y after school, but there's really not enough activities for particularly our middle schoolers. So we spent some time talking about that. Tom Gallagher and I met for our monthly update on athletics. I had a planning meeting for our North Shore Superintendent's Roundtable meeting that takes place tomorrow. We'll be in groups discussing legislative topics, including curriculum instruction issues, labor relations, school funding, and student safety and discipline. And this is all tied to preparation for our annual meeting with our legislators, which takes place in April. So I had my monthly meeting with the IEA president and vice president last week as well. We prepared for and participated in our third night with the FinCom. The Crest Collaborative had their board meeting to approve their budget for next year. Participated in the Ipswich Aware meeting where we discussed the potential use of opioid funds that are becoming available and the upcoming sticker shop campaign. We talked about policy. There's also a meeting with a group of folks that are looking to build the field house out by the track. Met with a parent expressing concerns regarding our athletic program. We had our first negotiation session, as Kate indicated earlier, preceded by several preparation meetings with legal counsel. Meetings with Tracy regarding the curriculum concerns and preparation for tonight. I also met with the tech director and the digital learning specialist to review the tech plan that's going to be coming forward at the next school committee meeting. This week I presented information on the budget and answered questions from the select board on Monday night. Our admin team focused on an observation calibration exercise and a discussion of our negotiation proposals. I also took the rest of that day to participate in the Compass meeting for the comprehensive health and PE curriculum. That's also one of my goals. The Educator Evaluation Committee met on Tuesday. It was great. I thought it was a great meeting with a lot of very rich discussion around evaluation and observations. Facilities Working Group met to review and update the SOIs, and the Communications Subcommittee also met. Last night I attended the String Fest. We have a good problem on our hands. We've got too many students engaged and parents wanting to see them perform. It was packed in that room last night, and it was admittedly on my part concerning that there were so many people in that room, because I don't think the fire department would have been pleased with us. Michael was telling me that next year he has, I think, 98 students in the orchestra at the high school, and Marissa has something like 96 in the 7th and 8th grade for next year. So our program is just bursting at the seams. So if we can do like maybe a balcony or expand out here, that would be great.
Capital budget season.
Capital budget,
Timing.
right. There you go.
Science wing and a balcony. Bring it.
This morning I met with Chris Race to review the status of our facilities again and ongoing concerns. And tomorrow I have the North Shore Superintendent's Roundtable meeting. No slowing down. I think we're on the fast track to June at this point.
Questions for Dr. Blake? Thank you for that update. Subcommittee working groups and liaison reports. We've obviously heard from several school facilities and policy. Other groups met and have to report.
Communications? Oh.
Have to kind of clarify what we want to do.
Right.
FEFI's on Wednesday, since it got pushed a little bit later, and I can't make that, so.
Because of negotiations.
Negotiations, yeah.
So the question is, do we want to just go ahead, because it's been a while since we met, or do we want to reschedule and just kind of wait?
Jeff back?
Jeff will be back, he said.
Oh, for negotiation, yeah, okay. Okay.
He met last week for the all-day, it was pizza. It's a big deal for me.
Big muffins.
Pizza and brownies and cookies. This is not the update you're looking for. But yeah, it was great. We talked about the next step for, the big event and.
Date of the big event?
Sure. I know it, but I just don't know it offhand.
Okay.
It's in May.
But
Actually,
yes,
May.
I'm
yes,
gonna announce it,
yeah,
'cause that's
so that was good.
available for me.
STEAM Showcase?
STEAM Showcase, yep.
May 16.
Communications met. The newsletter is in your folder.
Being worked on currently.
I saw it.
Couple highlights while my friend types. Brief update on initial contract negotiations. Again, good to hear we're off to a great start there. We want to make sure we're continuing to be transparent and share what's going on. Highlighting the diversity, equity, inclusion presentation that we heard this evening. Again, that's one of my highlights so far from the presentations from the administrative and staff team. The Whittier representative, again, congratulations to Mrs. Sullivan. The Student Opportunity Act, again, highlights from this evening's presentation. Continuing to reiterate where we are with the FY25 budget. Really highlight here is the most recent meetings with the Tri-Board and with the Finance Committee. And really, we're at the place now where we're ready to lock things up, and in particular, town meeting in May. We continue to include the link there. Again, this year, our big theme was increased transparency, additional time for review, and so part of even just a little bit of including the link, we want to make sure people have access to, opportunity to review, ask questions way ahead of town meeting. Again, wonderful evening with the Winter Sports Awards. We've highlighted those again here. Small town, we do tremendously well. We have a little roundup, activities and accomplishments from the last month like we usually do, and then upcoming district events. We'll finalize just a little bit of language on a couple of these, especially since several of them are just from updates from this evening, but any questions around the or feedback on the general sections? Anything specific in there for us?
I think they're great. I just plugged in
Yeah.
whatever, put it on the IEA if you want to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Negotiations.
That's how you did that. That's
um,
lovely. All right, I'll
you wanna
pull that
pull
over.
anything from that.
Yep, that's great. Yeah, I guess, Dr. Blake, if you have a second at some point, just to make sure that I captured the Student Opportunity Act. Again, typing while she was going there to make sure it got in there. So I hope I got that right. And then if we can just confirm a couple of the days and times. Bean counting, is it 9 a.m.?
April 6th to 9 a.m.
Okay.
I don't know.
And
Remind me, is that all of us or is that just budget subcommittee?
Historically, it's been a lovely gathering all morning of all of us.
Donuts.
I'm there either way. I just
trying to
want to
see
know
my
if,
donuts.
I just want to know if all of
At
you
a
are joining
minimum,
me.
it's the budget subcommittee. Just do your best.
I think historically, it's been the entire
Historically,
committee.
it's the
but-
committee.
Should the STEAM showcase be on the upcoming district?
yes,
Yes.
100%. Thank you.
May 16th.
16.
May 16th.
You have it's a Thursday.
That is a Thursday.
Do we have a time?
I have 5 to 7. Does that sound right? But I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
that
I
sounds right. Yep. I know I have to be there at different time, but yeah.
But maybe
1, 2.
verify that on the website because I might have just put that in because that's what I remembered from last year. But
Okay.
it's early evening though.
Um,
And I added in high school graduation, I believe, is at 10 a.m. I think we can just say it on the turf.
or how about at the high school?
I
Leave it
don't know
vague.
that John's
We don't know yet.
scheduled
Okay.
any of that yet.
Oh, you don't know the time? Okay, I can just put the date and
It's also June 2nd,
5
so
to 7.
we could.
What's that?
Steam Showcase 5 to 7.
oh, it is.
5
Thank
to
you.
7, Okay.
Great.
You potentially don't need
What
to
is
put the
10?
June dates in there if you don't want to. I mean,
Right? We just got an email about it.
Well, we were just thinking of like those
Just
known
check my-
big events.
typically 10 a.m. Yes.
Going?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just say 10 a.m. at the high school. Okay.
Yeah, looks great.
We also talked about.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank
I
you.
was giving you some space to type. Take it
Appreciate that. The things you're going to say. The library is putting on a preschool event on March 30th. So Sasha and I talked about going as school committee reps. We could have one more if anybody cared to join, like 9:30 to 11:30-ish or something like that.
What's the event?
It's like a gathering of all supports, anybody who wants to come that would want to be reaching out to preschool age families.
So that event, because I will be there in a different capacity, but the 2 elementary school principals are going to be there. I saw that on the list. Is it something a school committee?
Our intention was as part of our broader outreach, the same way, similar to how we talked about Council of Aging and a couple other groups, more expanding our presence beyond
Community
just school.
events, yeah.
Yeah, so it's more of the coincidence of those things. But it was in that
Okay.
vein.
All right, I
We
didn't
had-
realize.
Yeah, we talked about Dinner Bell. We'll find some timing later this year, but it is same same spirit.
Oh, that's great, because I think it's instead of it being the committee,
Yeah.
people see us as a fellow resident, and it's easier to approach somebody, or email a person that you've met, the dinner bell, or, so, because it's tough to even have the courage to email the committee.
Yeah.
So I think that's great. Great.
Are we still in touch with Council on Aging to try to get on an April date, or it's tough?
I'm so
No
excited
response.
about
It's hard.
that.
Okay.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, we have scheduling. We just haven't scheduled it yet. We had March and then it fell through, so
right.
we're working on April. Okay. And if we can't get Dinner Bell on this spring, I say we hop right on it in September and just pick a date. 'Cause
Yeah.
September
Jeff had looked into that and
typically
it
is
looks like,
slower for us.
Yeah.
But they run every week, so I say we just pick a date. I think we did November a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Early November maybe, which was after some parental fall sports commitments and but before things. Spring's rough for us now that you're noticing. It's busy, so it's tough to make those, but it was a fun event and it's good to do. Thanks. I guess I can say the Climate Resiliency Committee met last week. We talked about specialized stretch code, and I wanted to run it by the committee. Carl Nyland he's the school select board representative on the Climate Resiliency Committee. He offered to come give us a presentation on the specialized stretch code because they're hoping that we take a position on it as a warrant article, which we did last year. We didn't have a presentation last year, so he offered, but I wanted to run it by the committee before I said yes, because we did have a presentation at the tri-board from Dylan Patel, who was, I believe, from the DOER, and I thought he gave a really great presentation that was clear and clearly, to me anyways, delineated the specialized stretch code from the stretch code. So I guess I wanted to get a pulse of the committee. Are we interested in having Carl come? It would have to be next meeting because that's going to have to be our warrant hearing. Or do we feel like we have enough information from the presentation from Dylan Patel to take a position on that in 2 weeks?
I think getting the information directly from, did you say Patel?
We heard the information from Dylan at the tri-board.
Yeah, well, yes, I think getting the information directly from him was the best resource.
Yeah,
as far
I
as
thought
I'm
it was
concerned.
good.
So I think that was good for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sufficient for you to hear?
Sufficient,
Okay.
yeah.
As much as I love to see
You should come anyway.
Well, I mean, we have a busy thing, so I didn't want to just say,
that's
yes, come, unless we
Right.
felt like we really.
I thought it was a great
We wanted
presentation.
more time. Either way, if we don't have Carl, if we don't have, getting tired. If we don't have Carl come, he's welcome, as are the other climate resiliency members, to answer any questions we have. So
Good to, yeah.
I'm hearing no presentation from Carl on specialized stretch code.
Correct.
I will let him know. And feel free to email me or Carl directly if you have questions or clarifications that you want in the next 2 weeks.
There's the only thing I would say. There was something recently where Carl or the select board and FinCom, maybe it was with Whittier, had provided not talking points, but sort of a summary of recent conversations they had. So sort of highlights. And so while I agree the presentation that tri board was good. If the select board has discussed it further, they shared any of those highlights with us, I would appreciate that. Similarly, they had done that with Whittier, sort of.
So I
highlighted some of those things
don't
as
know if the select board's discussed it further. We can certainly ask Carl. Their warrant hearings are after ours. Even though we tried to not go first, we are going first because just the way the dates work out. So
And I don't want them to prepare anything else, but if they had something similar to Matt's point, the more information is better. So
yeah,
share
well, I
it,
mean,
but
so
otherwise I'm good.
it has been decided that the Climate Resiliency Committee will not be the one presenting the article at town meeting. It will be the select board. So it will be Carl presenting the article. So if they have developed their materials, I'm sure they're happy to share them with us.
Okay, thank you.
I can reach out to Carl. Other school subcommittee reports?
I had taken a follow-up around the field trip, and because it had been regular discussion as we were getting the requests, in particular the grant funding. So I'll bring it to an April meeting, but kind of two things. One, I'm putting together, or where I'm going with it is additional detail on what they are, what we're spending, and then the student population that's being included. We have the question about like spend per student. That doesn't really seem to, the cost isn't so much of an issue for us, but what I'm seeing is there's opportunity to actually provide funding, like in the example of this evening where there's additional, or where the students may not be able to attend. And so that's, I think, one where we have an opportunity to do more.
Where are you gathering that information from?
Talk to Tom to help provide it, but I'm also going through the requests to get like number of students and just the list of what
Okay.
those are. Yeah. Why?
I suppose great minds think alike, because I've
That's
already
something?
done that.
Oh, that's great.
So I gave it to the admin assistants to give me some specific numbers, because what the grants won't tell us is exactly how much the students are paying for some of those trips. So I've got most of that data now in a spreadsheet that I'll share with you then.
That'd be great, because then
So
some of it is to a certain degree directional on the like what's in the actual applications too. So yeah, that's
Right.
perfect. Anything
Right.
for us, I'm not so much looking for like the specific dollar amount. What I'm getting from the conversations we've had is like we don't have it would be better for us to have better increased visibility, so we're better informed when we're voting, setting direction, things like that.
yeah, and I think there were initially questions around what the funding sources were for different grants, and for me, looking at a couple of different pieces. One, the overseas overnight trips that were, should we be looking at those on some type of a cycle?
Yeah.
Looking at all of the other field trips that are overnight field trips. Should we look at different funding sources? How are they being funded? What the cost of those are? So that we have some clarity around that. Because some of the paying grants that are written are for half price for these trips, right?
that-
And other ones are just for students, just for student scholarships for trips. So there's a clear delineation there.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that was the connection, Matt, that you had suggested of how do we link those two things? And so we're more intentional, have a broader look as like from a grant perspective as well.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, part of the
Mhm.
direction we want to
Yep.
go to.
Yep.
So
Okay.
just sort of here's the direction. And then I think when we come back, we can share more of those details and then with some maybe specific recommendations.
So we could do it at a meeting, or we could gather information and potentially add it to a summer retreat topic, because
Yeah.
if it's that, like, but particularly those bigger questions of like our philosophy on field trips and international trips, and do we
Mhm.
want to talk about a
Right.
cycle? To me, that seems like
Sure.
a fairly
It's more
big
strategic.
discussion that
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
that might, and since we don't have anything, I mean, we haven't really talked about it, but it's something to think about. We usually have one or two items that we dig into a little bit more those sort of bigger
Meaty,
picture,
right.
meatier issues that we tend to cover in that summer.
I don't mind that. It's
session,
strategic
so
in
that's a-
nature, which is the intention of that. And when
Mhm.
we picked it up, it was just,
Right.
it kept coming up, but there was no action. So we
Right,
took
I know.
it. So that's
no,
fine.
I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, and it'd be great if we had that discussion in typically July, I think, to have all that data so that we could dig into it and really start to talk
The only-
about. And it's just an idea.
The only potential issue with waiting until the summer is that if the FEFI's policy were to change, it potentially could impact grants that are coming in the end of this month and would be looked at in April and May, unless we put
That's a good point.
that change into effect the following year.
Did say we wanted to, or it would be good to have at least more information going into that. Maybe there's a two-part. Maybe the first part is just increased information, and then over the summer, it's, so we have more of the list for the grant discussions, but over the summer, it's more strategic decision setting.
For that, we, Tom just said, the teachers are writing the grants now, so maybe that piece of it is a year out. that those would be,
impact.
I don't want to necessarily rush things.
I still think we should have those discussions.
Oh, absolutely.
because
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been spinning our wheels a little bit on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to
Action at
see
some point.
Yeah.
forward
Mhm.
momentum on that. But I think to roll it into this cycle when, I
But-
imagine they're already coming in and being,
I think what we could do though is not
They're not
to have a
due yet, but
decision
the
for the grant. but-
applications are out.
Are out and people are writing.
People are actively asking for information and getting budget support, and it's
wish we had
happening
gotten
right now. The grant writing is happening right
I
now.
think what we could do before it comes to, before the grants come to us for approval is have the information. So use the international trip, for example, for us just to know, there's some kind of trip for the Spanish class every single year, as opposed to just so we have better familiarity with it. That I think we can put together. So at least we have more information going into that.
Mhm.
That still seems.
their working group, subcommittees. New business, I just wanted to plant a bug in people's ears. We will, in the next meeting, probably talk about spring events where we tend to have a school committee presence, such as prom, senior prom, that is, baccalaureate, awards night, graduation, etc. Laura typically creates a little spreadsheet for us and we kind of fill in. Actually, it's not just high school graduation. We usually have a presence at Doyon graduation, Winthrop graduation, and 8th grade graduation. So I'm going to write graduations. So I can ask Laura to pull that together. So just give it some thought. Maybe look at the district calendar and see. I know we have 3 of us have seniors, so I imagine, but you might not want to go to those events as a school committee member. So keep that all in mind and we will discuss it at a future meeting. Consent agenda, vouchers and bills is all set. Consent agenda, move that the Ipswich School Committee approve the meeting minutes from February 29th and March 7th. Both of those are in our meeting folder.
Second.
Moved by Sasha, second by Jenny. All in favor? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Jen, second by Diana. I moved by Diana, second by Jen. All in favor? Oh, thank you. Thank you. Good night.